go ahead and call to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. You could bring up the Stars and Stripes. All right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
for which it stands,
and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Great. All right, so just a reminder of our public comment process. I'll try to go through it quickly for our virtual meetings. Again, this is a virtual meeting allowed by Governor Newsom and in accordance with the Brown Act. We're going to go ahead and allow public comment in 2 different ways. You can write public comment. You can email us at publiccomment@sonomacity.org, publiccomment@sonomacity.org, and we'll take those written public comments all the way up until public comment closes on the item that you're commenting on. You can also go ahead and do a virtual public comment. We won't see you, but we'll hear you. You can do that either by raising your hand virtually through the participants app and through Zoom, or you can dial *9 if you're calling in. Also, just of note, everybody's participating from home, and people have kids and dogs and cats and all types of animals and other distracting things. And so they may turn off their camera at any time, and we are allowing for that. It's just our courtesy and our promise to you is that if they do turn off their camera, they will not be leaving the room. And if they do leave the room, they'll be informing us of that. If we are Zoom bound, we have somebody come in and interrupt our meeting in some sort of nefarious way. We'll go ahead and shut down the meeting and pause it. Try to restart the meeting without that individual or individuals. If we're unable to restart the meeting, then we'll start the meeting again at a different time, but we will take absolutely no action. The meeting will not be continuing without it being done within the public eye. With that, we'll go ahead and go for a roll call. City Clerk?
Yes. Vice Mayor Hunley?
Here.
Councilmember Harrington?
Present.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Here.
Councilmember Cook?
Here.
Mayor Harvey?
Present. Great.
Thank you.
We have no report on closed session, so we'll move to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Hunley?
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington?
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Councilmember Cook?
Aye.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. 5-0. Comments from the public. We're going to go ahead and allow. So at this time, any member of the public may comment on an item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, unless otherwise permitted under the Ralph M. Brown Act, the merits of the matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium or go ahead and start speaking, unmute your microphone, and begin by stating and spelling your name. And we are going to have a 3-minute time limit. So if I interrupt you and let you know, hey, you got a minute left, you got 30 seconds left. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to inform you of your time. Usually we have the lights, so we don't have that. Or I guess usually now I'm interrupting people. So we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. And if I see anybody raise their hand, we'll go ahead and bring them into the meeting. That's got to be a first. I'm seeing nobody rise for general public comment. We'll go ahead and close public comment.
Mayor Harvey, we do have a written general public comment.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we got at least one. No history is being made tonight. Go ahead.
Good evening. This is Gil Lattimore, Grant Court, Sonoma. Understanding that questions will not be addressed by the City Council during the meeting, I ask that the following 4 questions be read into the record. 1, should Measure Y fail, how long will the city allow a cannabis retail monopoly to exist in Sonoma before it permits a second walk-in dispensary? 2, if Measure Y does not pass, how easy or difficult will the process be for a business group to receive a permit for a second dispensary? 3, it appears that Measure Y effectively prohibits outdoor cannabis cultivation. If Section 7 of Measure Y states amendments to certain provisions can be made if they are consistent with and further the process and intent of the act. Does that mean it could be amended to permit outdoor cultivation? Number 4, if Measure Y passes and supersedes the existing ordinance, what bearing exactly would that have on Spark's planned dispensary? And that was from Gil Lattimore.
Thank you very much, Gil. And so that's the end of our public comment session. We'll go on to meeting dedications. Do we have anyone wishing to make a meeting dedication?
None.
Seeing no from Councilmember Agamonte, who's our head meeting dedicator. No presentations tonight, so we'll move on to consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council, staff, the public request specific items to be removed for separate action. At this time, council may decide to change the order of the agenda. Do we have anybody wishing to pull any items from council?
I got an email from Siobhan Brady asking to pull item 4.4, which they said was sent to Rebecca, but received an out of office message. Did you get that, Rebecca?
I did, and I forwarded it to the city manager and the mayor and the city attorney. It's actually 4.3 that they want to pull. We got a second email.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I received that email as well. I was just asking if council specifically wanted to pull anything, and we'll definitely honor that request that we have written in. So this
Mayor
time,
Harvey, sorry. I don't have any other item to pull. I just have a minor edit to 4.2 that emailed out to council. This the city's grand jury response to the 2 water related items. This is a fairly minor thing, that in one of the responses, it stated that there was going to be a meeting at the Sonoma Development Center and that the Public Works Director would be participating in that meeting. That was scheduled for September 30th and then was canceled because of the fires. So it states as if we had attended because that was the plan, and then it was moved because of the fire. So there is an addendum that basically says that the Public Works Director plans to attend the rescheduled SDC specific plan, which was postponed, and that we'll monitor the progress of the SDC specific plan. That's the basic kind of edits that we'd like to make to that item and still have council take action. So you'd like to pull it, you can pull it, or council can approve the consent calendar with those minor edits.
So we got to go to public comment on the overall consent calendar, see if there's other items to be pulled, and then we can approve pulling item 4.3 and nothing else gets pulled. So we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. And seeing nobody rise, I'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to council. And do we have a motion for approving the consent calendar except for item 4.3?
So moved.
Can you approve item 4.2 with the edits that I mentioned?
With the approved edits to item 4.2.
So moved again.
So moved again.
Thank you, Councilmember Harrington.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Go ahead and roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Henley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Cook,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Move on to item 4.3. Adopt a resolution that one awards conditional certificate CC to Spark LLC, so Spark LLC allows it to make an application and obtain a commercial cannabis business permit to establish a retail storefront, commercial cannabis business at 19315 CA 12 in accordance, that's the address, in accordance with the city's adopted application procedures and guidelines for the commercial cannabis retail business. I'll go ahead and turn this over to David Storr.
Mayor Harvey, if I may, as at least some of my colleagues are aware, and members of Justice Grown, apparently. My husband a few weeks ago was in discussions about working with a ballot measure committee related to the cannabis initiative on our upcoming ballot. concerns were expressed that this created a conflict for me voting on this item. I don't believe I have a conflict, but I did request an opinion from the FPPC, and also because I don't want to cause any decline in public trust on this item. I am going to recuse myself, and I will not be participating.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hunley. So Vice Mayor Hunley is recusing herself from item 4.3, and we'll go ahead and turn it over to David Storr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. You may recall at your prior meeting, the representatives from Spark requested additional time to come to some terms with the city staff on insurance and indemnification provisions. We've since done that and provided that in the resolutions for your adoption tonight. We've also added some clarification language on some of the conditions of approval of the conditional certificate. And basically the threshold there is that other items will be coming back to your council for further refinement prior to the city manager issuing a CCBP, a commercial cannabis business permit. Staff recommends adoption of the resolution. This concludes staff's report.
Are there questions for staff from council? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Anyone rising for public comment? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the full board. And do we have comments from council?
I have a comment.
Great, Councilmember Harrington.
So basically, really because of what Councilmember Hundley is talking about, it made me think a lot about our process. And obviously hindsight is 2020, but I don't think this is a good process. And I don't think that we should be awarding a monopoly to one person. I think it's impossible in a small town for that to be done fairly. The more I learn of relationships that existed that I didn't know of, the more I realize I have been influenced without even knowing it. I mean, so all that being said, I don't think that, when I look back at the process, 2 different groups offered the city through charities $1 million, and neither of those groups was picked. And so it's hard for me. I thought Spark is great and they have really nice people that work with them and they put together a great presentation. But at the end of the day, when we were picking community benefits, the 2 groups that offered $1 million in the middle of the pandemic didn't get picked. And the one that offered the least amount of money did. And so I'm just thinking about the benefits to the community, given that we had an independent agency vet all of the applicants, and we were given 5 that were told to us that were basically equally as good on paper. All of them were equally as good. And somehow the 2 that offered the most benefits to the community were not selected. I don't think it's a good process. So I'm not going to support this tonight. I don't think it's a good process. And I guess I have learned, I don't think the government should be in the position of picking somebody to give a monopoly to. Maybe it would work better in a large town where there were fewer personalities at play. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of it came down to personal relationships, and I don't think that's fair. So I'm going to vote no.
Other comments from council?
Yeah, could I ask David Storr? I think I know there were some that offered something like that type of a dollar amount, but some of them felt, I don't know if we're supposed to talk about this. It was in closed session. Some may have fallen short on some requirements that we wanted from them, and I don't know by the end whether it was cleared up. All of those things. That's what sort of did that for me. And I think I feel more comfortable. I was no on any dispensary. I think I've come a long way into this. I agreed to the dispensary. And I think for our town, I think personally that's enough. And if it was a larger city, maybe I would have considered that, having more dispensaries, but I'm not comfortable with anything more than that. That's just what I'm thinking. David, I mean, we talked in closed session about a lot of things, and I don't think we can really reveal some of those, but I think there may have been some issues. But I can't, I can't speak to that. I just know I'm very comfortable with this.
I don't have any comments, obviously, about closed session, but your council may recall that we did have one meeting in which we did provide a spreadsheet of all of the different types of community benefits. Some were more monetarily incentivized than services. And so I think the deliberation of the council was, after reviewing the different types of community benefits, which included things such as the labor peace agreement, certain types of benefits of hiring employees within the valley, that kind of a thing, all of which most have been embodied in the conditional certificate to Spark, notwithstanding, as Councilmember Harrington said, there is no direct payment as an incentive. I don't recall off the top of my head the originator of the $1 million, but I do remember that one of the other final candidates said we will match that. So I think that's where Councilmember Harrington is remembering that there were two, but I'm happy to look that up if that's of interest to council.
Comments from other members of council? Okay. For me, I mean, we went through a long and arduous process, and was it? What's the name of that company? They were from Santa Barbara.
Lighthouse?
HDO,
No,
the company that helped us.
no, not the consultants. Coastal. Coastal was a company that offered the $1 million, and then Justice Grown matched it, and we. I think it was Councilmember Harrington had listed that Coastal was not a operator that really knew. They had operated very few dispensaries. It was kind of shown. So that was the reason they weren't chosen. The reason I chose to go with Spark over Justice Grown was they were a little more local. It seemed like they had local operations. They had direct contacts with our existing nonprofits, and I appreciated that and knew that that was real. And, I think both were good operators, could have been great operators in the city, but we've gone through this long process. And I feel like, to me, I'm going to continue where I was with my previous vote. And, as far as monopoly is concerned, I still support a dispensary in the city of Sonoma. I supported 2 as we began this process and asked that we do 2 at the very beginning, but it wasn't supported by council broadly. Which is unfortunate, I think, to the town. Voters will have an opportunity to decide. There's a ballot measure that would allow for more than one. That's on the ballot right now. So I think voters will get to decide that. And right now we've got Spark on the line. It's been a long process, and I don't want to be disrespectful to them to pull the carpet out at the last minute. That's kind of where I stand on this one right now.
So I personally don't want to go way back to the beginning. I don't even know if that would happen, but I personally feel I would move to approve.
Okay. Go ahead and second that.
Have we had public comment on this item already? I've been having video problems.
Previously.
We already did.
Nobody
Thank
commented.
Okay. You ready for a roll call vote? Vice Mayor Hunley? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Herring?
No.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Yes.
Councilmember Cook?
No.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
So it's a tie.
So it doesn't get approved.
Does it fail because it's 2 and 2? 1.
So Jeff, with a tie, that means no action on the item?
That is correct.
All right. Okay. So we're moving on to item 4.4, or we're moving on to the regular hearing, regular calendar, and we will have no dispensary opening up. So moving on to item 6.1, discussion, consideration, and direction on a request from Vintage House to construct building improvements and to extend their lease. City Manager, Kathy Capriola.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey, members of the council. I'd ask the city clerk to pull forward a couple folks, Priscilla Essert from Vintage House and one of her board members. So if we just wait a minute till they get brought forward. Great. And then Paul Chalmacall is also with us. Council, as you know, we have had a long and successful partnership with Vintage House, a local nonprofit that has basically built and operated our senior center on First Street East since I think it was the lease went into effect in 1987. So the city owns the land the Vintage House sits on. Vintage House raised the money to construct the facility, and they provide the operating funds and run and operate that facility on the community's behalf. They are one of our recreation providers, and the city provides annual funding to support them, but nowhere near what it costs them to run the program on a regular basis. So it's been a very long and successful partnership. I was approached by the executive director. They have an interest in doing some kind of a maintenance upgrades inside. In addition, the back patio also doing some upgrades. I'm going to let them describe that to you in more detail so you don't hear it twice. But the request before you is one, conceptual approval that they can construct their building permits, and if you're in agreement, we would bring that back and place it on consent at a future meeting. And then the other piece is a request to extend the lease. The lease went from 1987 and should go through 2042. We currently are about 60% through that lease. And the request from Vintage House is to basically extend the lease for another 55 years to 2075. So before staff does any additional work on this, we're asking for policy direction from the council. And with that, I would turn it and ask if we could hear from Priscilla, who can speak a little more about the efforts and investment that the Vintage House is looking at. Did we lose Priscilla? No. Priscilla, if you want to go ahead and unmute and speak.
She's still showing as being in the meeting.
Oh,
Am
it
I in
says
the,
that I'm
am
not.
I in the meeting? Oh, I'm in the meeting now. Gotcha.
Yes,
Okay, so sorry. This is a little new, this whole webinar thing.
it's okay.
I
Welcome.
thought I was invisible. I've been frantically chatting. Okay, so first I would, first of all, thank you for hearing this. And I would like to first start with our board chair, Paul Chakmak, who is going to, we don't ever want to assume that y'all know exactly about Vintage House. So Paul, can you take us down history lane?
Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, staff. I'm Paul Chakmak. I'm the chair of the Vintage House board, and I act as president, all purely on a volunteer basis, and work closely with Priscilla on a lot of what goes on inside the building and online now. As mentioned by staff, in 1977, Vintage House was launched in Sonoma as an idea by some locals to support seniors in the community. In 1983, it was incorporated as a 501c3 here in the state of California, and with that launched a significant capital campaign for the purpose of raising the money to build the building, which is now Vintage House. In 1987, as mentioned, Vintage House entered into the lease with the city that currently exists, and in 1989, it completed the building and opened its doors to the public. Today, Vintage House has 1,500 members that are part of its community, but certainly classes and other activity is available to those that aren't members. Our overall annual expenses are about $1.2 million a year to run the operation. That's funded about 80% with donations and grants. and the balance is funded with membership fees, class fees, and use fees for the building. We have a board of 13 folks that all reside in the Sonoma Valley and stay very involved in their particular area of expertise that helps support Vintage House as well. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Priscilla.
Okay, great. So here you can see, can you all see my screen? Excellent. Yes. Okay, so 264 First Street East, that is our residence right on the bike path. There is our front area. Now, for over 3 decades, we've had the privilege of serving this community. And we are all here about, supporting, spotlighting, and serving people of all ages 55 and up. And we've done this by fostering well-being, connection, and a sense of purpose and enjoyment. We've missed having people in the building, I must say that. But the building is still much on our mind about how to take this time and make it even better for the day when we can have as many people, once 400 people a day coming through here. We recognize, and again, thank you for having us here, we recognize that none of this would have been possible without the city of Sonoma as our partner. And as Paul mentioned, with the land lease originally dated September 15th, 1987, provided a fabulous framework for what is now Vintage House. And it also wouldn't have been possible without Jerry Casson, obviously. We are, with our building committee, which is a really amazing committee, prioritizing and planning how can we make this building better, and how to budget for this, and how to take what we have, the treasure that is Vintage House, and make it work for the community. We've taken several projects and timelined them. The most urgent one, and the most important in our opinion, especially in light of COVID, is enhancing the back patio on 2nd Street East of the building. And we would like to begin this as soon as possible. And we hope that after hearing our vision, that this could be something we can do sooner than later. So the concept is, COVID has taught us, well, the more outdoor space we can have, the better. For classrooms, but also for rentals, which have come to a screeching halt. But if we have outdoor space, that becomes something we can use, not just during COVID, but beyond. We don't want to just build for COVID. We want to build for COVID and beyond. It's pushed us in many ways to say, what do we do well and what can we do better, and then build for the future. The vision is create a larger space by expanding into the area where there are currently 2 parking spaces, and to also secure the patio. We've had some homeless issues that haven't pleased our neighbors, where people are camping out on our back patio, which is currently unsecured. You can get in from 2nd Street East or from the bike path. This particular project is #1 project for us. We understand it currently from the conversations we've had to be roughly in the ballpark of $300,000. So this is the bike patio, back patio, sorry. As you exit from Stone Hall, I don't know if many of you are familiar, but Stone Hall, as in Carolyn Stone, is a very prime rental space for us and a classroom space. And when you flow out into it, this is what it currently looks like. You can see, I don't know if you can see my arrow. But we've got some challenges with the bike path in terms of things that are getting deposited in our trash cans. So we've had to shut them down. This is the view from our service entry. Not easy for many to navigate. So we want to modify that. Again, we don't exactly know what is possible, but we know what we would like. And then, next slide. Let's see here, would be, this is the view from our driveway to our kitchen, where all the caterers and people who help us deliver food to the community come to. And this is from that driveway through to the bike path. You can see it's a bit closed off. It could be opened up more. And then again, this is from Stone Hall looking at the 2nd Street East patch, which is a remarkable view. People love it. but it could be opened up. And how? Well, possibly, if again, this is something we can do. I have to say that's my car, but it would be, you know, what could we do with these 2 parking spaces to expand the area? So for the community, um, to make this a beautiful, natural gathering space. We have additional projects we want to do, which is to replace the flooring. We've done a little bit of that, but repainting, enhancing the acoustics. We acknowledge we have some issues with our classrooms for the hearing impaired. Updating our restrooms. We have some work to do there. And then our front parking lot, which I don't have a photo of because it wasn't really a remarkable photo I could grab, definitely needs resurfacing. Overall, we expect the cost of these projects to be considerable, and as I said early on, the most pressing one, which is the back patio, for both revenue generation and community engagement, is considerable. And that back patio again is a $300,000 project. Why would we do these with only 15 years left on our lease? Which is why we are respectfully asking for your consideration to restore our lease back to a 55-year term, and therefore extending it to 2075. And I just want to close, and Paul may have more to say since he is on the building committee, that we look forward to partnering on this with the city. We think it's a huge community asset to improve this building, and in particular this outside space. And we look forward to partnering with all of you. And I do thank you for hearing this tonight. And Paul, do you have anything to add?
I think we can open up to the council or however.
Okay, great.
So any questions of the council? And
Want to stop the screen share so we can all...
yeah, stop that way. Mm-hmm.
I will stop the screen share. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla.
I have a question.
Great. Vice Mayor Hunley.
Or also Amy Harrington.
Oh, I thought you said, I'm sorry. I heard it. I thought it was, there you go. Good.
Priscilla, thanks for the presentation. Do you have any estimates about how much more use you would get if you did the improvements, or what are your thoughts?
That's a great question. We anticipate, especially post-COVID, an increase in rentals. I think it would greatly enhance what we could do with our kitchen, stone hall, and moving into the patio. I also feel like it could help us bring back our fundraising efforts into our own building instead of renting other locations. But, you know, COVID's not going to be gone in just a year. And to the extent that we can bring things outside is going to be a service to our seniors. And I think long term, there are a lot of people in the beautiful weather that would love to be out there. And we've had ice cream events, music events. I just think it would be an incredible community gathering space for Vintage House and broader than that.
Great.
So I have a question and then I think a comment. It is beautiful, the back patio, but it's very hot. Are you going to be covering it or having something temporary that, you know, like an awning or something?
We've talked with the 4 contractors right now, and what is consistent is a shade element, and in some cases a way to also make it impervious to rain. So it could really be a year-round, you know, designed properly, open door space that would be, you know, revenue generating, but also community building. And, you know, we're trying to do both of those things.
And we created a scope for the overall project and shared that with the 4 landscape architects and contractors Priscilla referenced, which are all local. And some form of shade structure is critical to maximizing the use of that part of the facility, you know, especially during the summer, but it gets a heavy eastern morning sun.
Mhm. So, and Kathy, I thank you. We spoke about the length of the contract. Well, I'm a little confused now because initially I heard 87 and now it's 89. Is that right? The
No, the
original.
lease is 1980, the lease is 1987.
Okay.
So 55 years would have taken us to 2042. So we're basically 33 years into the lease, about
Right.
60%, and there's 22 years left on the lease.
And that was what you and I discussed. I prefer not to do the 55 or I don't know, but to do the, I think go add 22 years, which would bring them into the original 55. It would complete the 55. Is that right? I'm kind of mixed up by the numbers right now.
Well, you could just leave the lease. Maybe we should go to public comment and come back because this is
Okay.
more of a comment.
But
But
that's
just
just
as a point of clarification, Councilmember Agramonte, right now there's 22 years left. So
right.
if you do nothing, the lease stays with 22. The council has the prerogative to give us direction whether to add 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to the current lease as an amendment. And you do that a lot with properties we own, or you can at this point decide you want to, you know, you're 60% through and you want to take it for an additional 55 years and kind of do a new lease taking it forward.
I have my mind back. Thank you.
Not a problem. Any other questions of council or?
Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it out for public comment. I'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. And I see Fred Albach jumping at the gun. 3 minutes, Fred. Go for it.
I don't think I'll need 3 minutes. I just had a design idea. I know that the Vintage House has got a kind of nice red metal look there. And so it's just making kind of a metal pole barn extension that would attach to the existing roof and then put a metal roof on top of that. So it'd be kind of like an open pole barn and have it the same color as the red. And I would be willing to do that for $200,000 rather than $330,000. So I just want to make you an offer on that. Thanks.
All right. Great. Anybody else rising for public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Thank you, Fred. You guys just saved $133,000, it sounds like. We'll go ahead and see if we have comments from members of council.
Mayor Harvey, maybe just before we get comments, just one other thing that this lease is, if we're going to do whether, you know, any extension up to the full 55, I do think that the city attorney and myself would like to do a review. Again, it's 33 years in this lease. It's a little aged. So for example, I think within this lease, there should be things like if it is some of the flooring or basic maintenance things, those things, I believe that the lease should allow the Vintage House to do those things without having come back to council. Things that are like more major capital improvements where it's changing, like for example, the patio, fully appropriate, something like that should come to council. But a lot of the maintenance pieces feels like that could be rewritten into the lease to make that more streamlined. So there's probably a few things like that but again, before staff spends any time, we wanted to know the pleasure of the council.
I have a comment.
Great. Vice Mayor Hellman.
It's me. So I realize, so I support basically restarting the lease, and I do see it as a good opportunity to kind of do what they did in 1987, but on modern terms, and look at the future similarly. I recognize that it is a long time, but the relationship with Vintage House has not only been really successful, but the things that they do are utterly essential, and they're things that we do not have the capacity to do. And I think if the day came before now, in the end of 55 years from now, that the city had an idea for a different use of the building or Vintage House ended up doing something else, that the resolution would be amicable between the parties. So I don't see us just booting them or them just walking away. So I think that, you know, over the future, we'll still keep working together. And if it came that something needs to change, I think we'll be able to address it at the future date. But I find the certainty for them and putting some money into it and knowing they're going to be there for a long time, I think it's important. I think it's a a good way to support them again, because they do a lot.
Thank you. Other members of council that like to talk? Madeline, it looks like you're commenting, but we cannot hear you.
Thank you.
Councilmember-
So Kathy, we spoke today, and so I guess you're saying you want to sit down with Jeff and possibly look at the lease. Is that what you're?
Well, I guess my point is, if council does want to do any type of an extension broader than what is in place now, I think Jeff and I should look at kind of a refresh, because it's been 33 years, or maybe some areas of the lease need to be updated. And one area I think is basic, some of these, what I call maintenance items, new roof, new flooring, those types of things shouldn't have to come back to council, but the way it really reads now is they do. So I think there's probably a variety of things that could use a little bit of an update in that lease regardless. And then it really is the pleasure of the council of what term for the next phase of this partnership that if you want to extend.
So I guess what we discussed today was adding, I think if the numbers are right, 33 years, I guess now, and adding 17 to them. So that would make a 50 years, because they've completed 33, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. I didn't know there was another number that was brought up.
There's already, so we're 33 years into the 55-year lease, and there's still 22 years left. So one action for council is to say, you know what, there's still 22. That's still enough time that let's wait and let's have a conversation about extending it when we're 10 years out or something. That's one option to the council. The other option is to do, do a restart, a refresh, as I think Vice Mayor Hunley was saying, with a full 55. Or you could go somewhere in between. You could do another 10 or another 20 and adding on the current to give some more runway to Vintage House based on the improvements that they're going to be making. From staff's perspective, we are, have the relationship with Vintage House couldn't be more positive. And I just don't, again, you heard what it is. It's over 1.2 million. As a city, we would not have the ability to take that on ourselves. The contribution we give, I think, is, well, the numbers are a little different, but it's in the neighborhood of that 35, 40,000 a year. That is a great contribution from the city, but it's not running the program. So it's part of our partnership, and the free land is a piece of it. So it's really what the comfort and pleasure of the council is.
Go ahead, Councilmember Cook.
Yeah, I would say that the Vintage House has been a major asset of the city of Sonoma, and I love the work that they're doing. I would support the 55-year reset. I think it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of donors out there. When they see longevity, they know that it's a good deal. And it's a good deal for the city of Sonoma. Normally, I don't like to go far out on a lot of projects, but something like this, it's been proven, and I think it would be a disservice with them looking at what they're doing there. And there'll be some future stuff. And I do agree with the city manager. I think that I would support looking at the language to make it a little bit easier, so we don't have to, the staff and the Vintage House doesn't have to come back to the council for some minor details. But that would be something that, I'm sure that would come back to the council at that point. But that's how I feel. And I just want to say to the two individuals and everybody listening out there, thank you so much to the Vintage House. I've been on the city council for 8 years. I'm about ready to fall off because I'm not running for re-election. And the work you have done has just been unbelievable. When we looked at stuff when I was the mayor with needles, and just every time I ever called the Vintage House to talk about anything, I always got a response. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilmember Cook. Councilmember Harrington, did you have comments? Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say that given the age of our population and our demographics, having services for people 55 and older is critical. And since we don't have our own recreation department, we're lucky to have a partner like Vintage House. And this is, the way we do our program is with, free and no cost leases as our contribution to making a program work. And I support the extension of the lease and the modifications. So I think it's great. And Priscilla, I really think your leadership has brought a lot of energy to the Vintage House. No offense to anyone who came before you, but I think you're doing a great job, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see, you know, new ideas being brought forward about how to be innovative and make the space better. So,
Thank you.
Great. So are there different options on the table in terms of the lease extension?
There's not different extension. I mean, the request from Vintage House, which is why we're bringing forward to you, is for basically, I think refresh was a good language, refresh of a new 55 years. But council, you have the full priority to do no current lease and say you want to reconsider in 10 years, or you could do somewhere in between, you know, 0 and a full 55.
I mean, I'm fully comfortable with the full 55 as long as, you know, there's ability for, I agree with Vice Mayor Hundley, and, you know, you can hear across the board, the council is extremely supportive, and I think it's been supportive of Vintage House. You know, David's talking about, you know, previous times working with them and everything. So I think there's broad support for that longer kind of period. And, you know, as Councilmember Harrington said, you know, we have an aging community, and the Vintage House is a vital piece of it. So I just think I think the 55 works for me. If it works for the rest of council. Good.
I'm comfortable with the 55, Mr. Mayor. I just thought, looking at, you know, brightening our horizons the way that we look at financing, excuse me, or contracts. The other thing, Kathy, did you say that some of the smaller construction issues that Vintage House might have don't even need to be in the lease, or it's just a presentation?
No, I think what we would do, so the action before you tonight would be to get direction. So if the direction from council is twofold. One, if you were supportive of the capital improvements and what I would call maintenance improvements that they want to do, that would be one part of the lease. And you would, I think what we would do is we would just bring back, I'm looking at the city attorney here, but I think we could do a basic side letter to say those things are all right, if that's the direction of council, and you could authorize Jeff and I to do that. I'm looking at Jeff whether that's okay, if we need to bring that back on the consent. And then also if the other action would be, the other motion would be to direct staff to update the lease with extending it with a refresh for a new 55 years. So I'm looking at Jeff for what his level of comfort is in terms of how this item was noticed, whether we need to bring something back on the construction and building improvements, or if you can direct us.
I think the council can direct staff to exercise the authority to approve the plans. But again, that begs the question whether the council wants to have a role in reviewing the plans for the exterior improvements, including the patio. If you don't want to have a role in that review, then you can tonight direct staff, have that authority, and ask the Vintage House to submit the plans to staff for its review and approval. The extension on the lease would need to come back to council as an amendment.
Why don't the plans have to go to design review?
They would follow whatever typical process would be occurring, whether it's design review, planning commission, et cetera. So they would follow our typical process.
Yeah, we're just saying not council review, but it's still going to have the review of our appointed bodies, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're just saying as the owner, the landlord, that the tenant can make the improvements.
Right, and then anybody who wanted to appeal the decision of the planning commission could, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. It's kind of the question is, as I think Mayor Harvey was saying, as a landlord, if you want to see it, and maybe if this was a big outdoor addition, you're adding another wing, you could see council wanting to maybe see it. With this being kind of interior mainly, and frankly a patio with some kind of a covering, I'm sure it will look beautiful, but it may not rise to a level that council feels like they have to kind of, you know, approve that level of aesthetic and let your commissions handle it.
And Mayor, if I could ask a question really quick to our attorney, just hypothetically, what would happen? I mean, we're just giving up the rights as owners of the property. But what if it does go to planning commission and gets appealed? Then it would come back to this body. We would still be able to have that function, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, sounds like there's general consensus on the council on this. I do want to echo the comments of everybody else that, you know, the Vintage House is such a fantastic organization, and with the 55-year lease, I'm glad it's going to be extended until I'm closer to the average age of its so
55 is the magic number, right?
oh, there you go. Yeah, and I look forward. I got to have a wonderful tour of it right before COVID hit, and learning about all the programs that are offered there. My lifelong dream is to learn how to play bridge, and that was going to be one of the things I accomplished this year. But the year of everything got in the way, and we'll pick it up. Hopefully next year, but we'll see soon. So appreciate all the work you do, Priscilla, and your board. And I just want to echo the comments. I think you're doing a fantastic job. The programs you have expanded, and the quality of service that you've provided is fantastic. And it's such a useful and important piece of our community. So just thank you so much for all that you do. Couldn't be happier. And with that, we'll go ahead and ask for a motion and a roll call vote.
Move to approve.
Second.
And a roll call vote, please. Oh,
And just, sorry,
I
I
think
just
we're
want to make sure.
approving the 55 years plus the updated lease, which will be worked on by staff.
And directing staff and authorizing staff to do a basic side letter or something that allows them to move forward with to process these improvements.
wonderful.
Just to confirm, the second council member, is that correct?
It was for me. I don't know if Madeline needs to say something else to confirm that that's her motion.
No. It's what Kathy said I was going to say.
Vice Mayor Henley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Cook,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, great. Moving on to item 6.2, progress update, discussion, consideration, and possible direction regarding the Friar Creek pedestrian bicycle bridge project. Public Works Director Pauline Ferguson.
Right. Are we ready? Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Great. Greetings, Mayor Harvey and council members. So you're familiar with the Friar Creek Bicycle and Pedestrian Bridge. So I'll just remind you what it's about. So it'll construct a new pedestrian and bicycle bridge between Newcomb Street and Manor Drive. Will improve access for residents on both sides of Friar Creek and connect people to schools, to parks, and other destinations. And the bridge will be constructed over Friar Creek, which at that location is a flood control channel that's owned and operated by Sonoma Water, which is also called Sonoma County Water Agency. The project that, the city was awarded a federally funded One Bay Area grant in the amount of about $500,000 to construct the bridge. And that's part of the funding that we need for construction, and additional project funding of $274,000 through the Quimby Act was allocated through the Capital Improvement Program in the fiscal year 2019-20 budget. At this point in the project, we are working on right-of-way. Engineering design of the project's been completed, environmental permits have been obtained. We need to get right-of-way from Sonoma Water, the property owner, and also from PG&E. PG&E has an existing easement on the Sonoma Water's property for a high voltage electrical line that goes under the creek. There's no physical conflicts between the proposed bridge construction and the PG&E electrical line, but the easements that we need for the bridge does overlap with an existing easement that PG&E holds. So due to that overlap of the easements, the city needs to enter into a use agreement with PG&E for the overlapping easements. We also need to enter into an easement agreement with Sonoma Water for building and maintaining this bridge on their property. Both the use agreement with PG&E and the easement agreement with Sonoma Water really need to get wrapped up by early December 2020 to keep on track for our grant funding. And the council should be aware that both agreements require the city to incur some risk to obtain rights from property owner Sonoma Water and senior easement holder PG&E to construct this pedestrian and bicycle bridge over the Sonoma Water property and within the PG&E easement. Under the easement agreement with Sonoma Water, Sonoma Water could require the city to relocate any of its improvements, including the bridge, at city expense if necessary for Sonoma Water's use of the property or for operation of Sonoma Water improvements on the property. Sonoma Water does, through the sanitation district, operate sewer lines in the area as well. While this sounds like scary language for an agreement, in my experience working with Sonoma Water on projects in the city of Santa Rosa, a provision like this is typical for any approval granted by Sonoma Water to other agencies for construction of pedestrian and bicycle bridges over their flood control channels and other significant infrastructure constructed by public agencies on their flood control channels. So getting back to the project schedule, we're moving forward with expectation we would receive our right-of-way certification in December and then receive the authorization to construct from Caltrans in April, put the project out to bid, award the contract in May, and construct the bridge next summer. So between June and maybe as late as January 2022 to finish up all the various aspects of the project. So this update on the Friar Creek Bridge project is being provided to council today because staff knows that a lot of the people in the community are very interested in this project. Every time I'm out there, someone stops by and says, hey, what are you here for? And I mentioned this bridge. They're like, oh, we're so excited about that. And also staff wanted council to be aware of these pending right-of-way agreements with Sonoma Water and PG&E and give council the opportunity to provide direction to staff at this time. So that concludes the staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions of our Public Works Director? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it up for public comment. Seeing no one rise, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council. Do we have anybody for written comment, Latanya?
No, Mayor Harvey, we don't.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and close public comment for written too. Let's close it twice. Any comments from members of council on this? None. Okay, great. Oh,
I'll make a comment. The provision about the easement and how at any point we have to pick up our bridge and move it. Like it's a high gravity thing happening, but it's certainly not unusual. And usually, whoever owns the property has to use their property first for their own interests, and then second to others. So we're just second in line. But I think it's just what thing we have to do to get this bridge built.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Great. I mean, yeah, usually a requirement like that to move it would be like a bridge too far. But I think in this case, it's unlikely to happen. So we should move forward with this. And if we go ahead and have a motion, we'll go on ahead.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Hunley,
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Councilmember Cook,
Aye.
Mayor Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, great. Moving right along. Item 6.3. Receive presentations on police department's use of force policies and provide further direction. Please, Chief Orlando joining us. And this really kind of came out of an initiative, the Brothers Keeper movement and the rest of it that, as we know, the Black Lives Matter protests kind of came into national focus this year. And we've been talking about them for an extended period of time. And it's an important piece of community outreach and of bringing our community together. And so we had a lot of citizens that reached out around the 8 Can't Wait campaign. And we have a great relationship with our local law enforcement. And we have Chief Orlando here to kind of go through the use of force As everybody knows, we're contracted with the sheriff, so we don't have direct purview over these types of policies, but to review them, I thought was important. And so thank you, Orlando, for joining us, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate you having me. Good evening, everyone. Vice Mayor Huntley and the rest of the council members. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to try to share my screen here, and let's see if I can make this work.
Well, Orlando's doing that. I also want to thank Mayor Harvey and Councilmember Harrington, who are on the subcommittee and reviewed kind of and worked with Orlando and myself on this. Also just want to acknowledge that Chief Rodriguez has had a busy week, as all the sheriff personnel have, with the fires, et cetera. I think he's in a hotel, still evacuated as he's doing his presentation. So just appreciate his commitment in light of everything. I'll turn it back to you, Chief. You having trouble?
Looks like I won't be able, yes.
Okay, give me a minute and I will pull it up on my end. Mayor Harvey, could we just take maybe a 3-minute break and we'll get it pulled up and come back, because I've got to log on from another computer.
Okay, we'll take a 3-minute break and come back to this. Thank you.
Great. years ago. And that's where we learned how to do it. The guy that was there teaching us how to do the photos, he did that one. And it took us about a couple days because we didn't have a shadow box. He created his own. And yeah. And then when we turned it in, the captain at the time said it was too perfect. So we had to go put some more shadowing in there. And so then he said, okay, so the one that you have is there, but there was one that was way better. And for whatever reason, he didn't like it. So
It's pretty amazing.
yeah, so. But no, it's funny how, you know, there's a way you take photos of a crime scene. You start from far away and then you do your medium shots and then your close-ups. And when you go on family vacations, that's exactly what you do. So.
So you're evacuated, Orlando?
Yes, I was. They, you know, I went from about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning to about 5, till I finally reached, you know, the hill and then finally came down. During that time, they were, you know, they were doing all these breaks to slow it down throughout that whole neighborhood, through the whole Santa Rosa neighborhood there. And so we were pretty lucky. The firemen did a great job. And all the people working those big cats and doing those breaks really saved all the homes. It looks like they were just waiting. They basically said, "This is the line. We're going to fight the fire here, and either we win or we lose." And they won. So luckily for us, they did a great job.
I'm glad you guys are all safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was. I think the sheriff's office posted a video right from our backyard, pretty much right there on Badger and Calistoga Road, and you could hear the big propane tank give out the gas as it burned, and then it finally blew up. And my daughter goes, "I heard, was there an earthquake? Was that something exploding?" So that's what it was. So that was around 2 or 3 in the morning, and then that's when it just finally came down the hill. And Sergeant Tony was there, plus another deputies, and pretty much at that point we decided that it was time to leave. One of the somehow the fire is so hot and it creates its own weather pattern. When I went back inside the house, Jeff stayed a little bit longer, and he said that that there was like a big wind pattern or something hot, and it just shot out. And then like 10 minutes later, Maria Carrillo High School, one of the rooms was on, the back wall was on fire. So they basically, the firemen were right there on that one. And then he gave me a call and he goes, "Hey, it's time to go because Maria Carrillo High School's on fire." And I go, "Yeah, we're leaving right now." That's when I asked my daughter to leave, and we didn't get to see what else happened after that. But around 7 o'clock in the morning or 8, we left around 5:30. So around 7, I came back to see what was happening, and there was no more fire. So there's a few spot fires here and there, but they were still going to do some more back burns and things like that. So in case it came back, it wouldn't affect the residents.
Have you lived there a long time?
Yeah, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 15 years. We came close in 2017. About a half a mile away, it burnt in 2017 at Burnt Oak Park, which was our basically a racket swimming pool club, workout club, and that caught on fire and I burned that. So they haven't rebuilt. I think they sold it to the school district. So yeah, it was close.
Harrowing.
So there's ash everywhere.
Mhm.
The house smells like smoke. So yeah, there's a lot of cleanup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scary times. I think we're all back now, Chief. So Rebecca, if you want to restart video, whatever, but I think we're ready. So just tell me when to hit the slide, Orlando, and I'll be happy to do it.
Okay. So we're all on?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you again for having me. And I just want to thank, again, Councilmember Harrington and Mayor Logan for participating in this. And Mayor Logan for taking the time and going to the sheriff's office and kind of seeing everything that we do and participating in some of the things and some of the training that we have. That really meant a lot to us at the police department and a lot to the sheriff's office, and especially the sheriff and the captain. They were really glad to meet you that day. So as we all know, the reason we're here is because after the tragic death of George Floyd and the ensuing protests all throughout Sonoma County, the mayors and all the chiefs came together to engage in a discussion about police practices and reform. And myself, along with Mayor Harvey and other city mayors and other chiefs of police and the sheriff, made a pledge to review all police policies and in the use of excessive force by police departments by implementing changes. And growing up in a low-income housing, if back in the day, you always heard about these things, and I wasn't much of a activist, but I don't know if this would have brought me forward to protest too. It's just different. But now here I am. I've heard the city manager say a couple of times that, the reason I'm here is because of this time, and I think you were meant to be here during this time. So here I am talking about police. Now myself on the other side, I don't want to pick sides, but on this side, explaining the use of force, and I hope I can do a good job at it, and I hope that everybody can learn something today on how our tactics work. Let's go ahead to the next slide. The purpose of tonight's presentation again is to overview of the use of force policies, the training, and use of force statistics. Also, there's 8 policy objectives that we're going to review, and the ones you see in green are the ones that I believe our use of force policy we are already implemented, and the ones in purple are the ones that we're going to try to work into hopefully meet these objectives. We're also going to talk about mental health, and then the Sonoma Police statistics regarding use of force, and then of course a little bit of our department. Next slide. Sonoma Police Department services. As we all know, the city of Sonoma contracts with the Sheriff's Office for local law enforcement services. Our personnel was reduced this year because of a lot of impacts. Right now we have 9 deputies, 2 sergeants, 1 CSO, and 1 admin clerk. Our general functions is patrol, traffic, and animal control. Of course, additional resources is from the Sheriff's Office you're going to get is deputies, 24/7 supervision. I'm not always available, but there's always going to be somebody that is going to be there to reach out to the city manager or to the mayor. Of course, investigations, special operations units, a helicopter, TAC team, and the mobile support team, mental health crisis team. Next slide. Okay, we're going to go ahead and review what policies are and procedures. As we all know that, or not know, POST stands for Peace Officer Standards and Trainings. So POST sets the standard for all law enforcement agencies. They set all the standards to all the academies. So if you want to be a police officer, they're the ones that set the standards. and we have to meet those standards. They were established in 1959, and that's what basically the minimum standards were enacted. All agencies have to meet these standards. Anything that has to do with job-related issues, like what, the policies, the training, hiring, and of course, they also provide schooling. So if I want to go to a management school, I can find a management school for peace officers for a specific management type, right? So all the state of California does have this, and as we'll see, you're going to see that when the governor did change a couple things, he's got the power to change these standards if he wishes to. And there's a post below that a link below where you can go to post, and it will provide you with all the guidelines. Okay, next slide. What are policies? Well, our policies and procedures are the guidelines and rules which tell us how to do our job. The Sheriff's Office does contracts with Lexipol, which is a company that was created in 2003 by 2 attorneys and a law enforcement officer to create better policies and training. And also it's connected with risk management principles and provides overall policies. If there's a law update, they will change the policy, or they will recommend to the sheriff, you need to change certain, basically there's a new law and it's going to affect this policy. We recommend you change this. So the sheriff will take a look at that policy. He will go over it with his admin staff and see how we can either word it better or leave it like it is. So we're always trying to improve the policies. Sonoma police officers are all subject to all the sheriff's policies, as we are Sonoma County employees. And all these changes, of course, are done by the sheriff. Now there's a link below, of course, of all our policies and procedures. Next slide. Use of force policies. Next slide. So this is what we call the use of force spectrum. And I was trying to figure out a name for it. And Kathy came up with it. So I go, yeah, that works for me. So basically it goes from non-injury to how do we determine what is use of force and what's not. So if somebody complies with an arrest, that means he gives himself up, he allows himself to be handcuffed, and we take him into custody, then that's we don't report that because the person complied. So now if the person does not comply and we have to use any type of force, so somebody stiffens up and a deputy has to forcibly put his hand behind his back and the other one and force him into a car, then that is what we call use of force. Of course, other use of force would be a baton or a taser strike, and so on into an officer-involved shooting. So then as we move up the spectrum, there's an injury. There could be a non-injury, but a complaint of pain. We will document that. So if the person being handcuffed complains of injury, we're going to document that regardless if there was no force use. Now, if there was force used, but there is no injury, we still document that. Now, of course, any injury we will document. Serious bodily injury we will document, and of course, serious bodily injury or death we will document. So what happens in the first spectrum where it says non-injury to injury? We will do an internal review. The officer has to call a sergeant and say that either the person's complaining of pain or there was force used and there's an injury. So the sergeant will be notified. A sergeant will document. The officer will document. The sergeant will document. Basically the lieutenant, or the chief, will review, and then it will go to the captain. And if it needs to go to internal affairs for further follow-up or further investigation, it will. And then IOLERO will get a copy of that. And we'll talk about IOLERO in a little bit. Now, when it comes to serious bodily injury or death, like an officer-involved shooting or an in-custody death, an external investigation will be conducted. We will invoke the critical incident protocol. An investigation will be started by an outside agency, Santa Rosa Police Department or Petaluma. It will be also investigated by the District Attorney's Office. And of course, the Sheriff's Office Internal Affairs will only be there as a as basically as to see the interview or to follow through, to go through the process of the investigation, as they will also document it. If it's a death, it will be reported to Department of Justice, and then of course all this will also go in front of IOLERO. If it's a serious in custody death or an officer involved shooting, what happens to the officer? If he receives any injuries, those will be documented, and then he will also be questioned by investigators. He will be put in on administrative leave, and after he is questioned and he's no longer needed for questioning, he will have to go through a mandatory fitness for duty psychological exam. Next page. So next we're going to talk about, we're going to review the 8 use of force policy objectives. The first one is, let me do this. The 8 are require comprehensive use of force reporting. Number 2 is require de-escalation. Number 3, require officers to intervene when excessive force is being used. Number 4, establish and require use of force continuum. Number 5, require all alternatives be exhausted before shooting. Number 6, require warning by officers before shooting. Number 7, ban shooting at moving vehicles. And number 8, ban chokeholds or strangleholds. Next slide. So number 1, this is in our policy, require comprehensive use of force reporting. So our policy, Sonoma County Policy 300.5, reporting the use of force. Any use of physical force by a member of the Sheriff's Office or Sonoma Police Department shall be documented. Actions not considered physical use of force are Sheriff's Office approved searching or handcuffing when a suspect does not resist. So the suspect or the person allows himself to be handcuffed. No force when a deputy gains voluntary compliance of a subject and the subject allows himself to be handcuffed without resistance. Next slide. So this is what the comprehensive use of force reporting looks like. A deputy will notify a sergeant when force is used. The deputy shall document the force used in a report. Sergeant will respond to the scene. The sergeant will obtain statements from all involved. So that means the person that was arrested, any witnesses, and all the deputies. He will photograph any injuries. So if the suspect or the person being arrested received injuries, he will be photographed. If the deputy received injuries, he will be photographed. The sergeant will review body-worn camera from all involved. So that means if there was 3 officers or 1 officer in the arrest and 2 other ones showed up to back him up, we will still review those body-worn cameras. They will be documented with the same case number. So those will be basically in memory for 5 years. And then he will approve the report. The sergeant then will forward that report to the chief or to the lieutenant. So all Sonoma use of force reports come to me. I will review. I will see what I will look for was the force used within policy. I will try to identify any training issues, if any. If I believe that this was excessive, I will assign it to an internal affairs investigation, and I will forward that to an internal affairs lieutenant, and then they will investigate it. And then, of course, at the end of the whole investigation, this will be sent to IOLERO. So next slide. So what is IOLERO? Oh, we'll continue this. I thought IOLERO was next. Comprehensive use of force, IOLERO, it is next. What is IOLARO? Independence Office of Law Enforcement Review and Outreach. Sonoma County Independent Auditor who oversees the Sheriff's Office use of force complaints and policies. So it is an audit of all our use of force. The Sheriff's Office is the only law enforcement agency in Sonoma County who has this independent auditor. What do they have access to? Complaints that originate with IOLARO. So if I don't feel comfortable going to a police department to make a complaint, I can go to the IOLARO office and make my complaint there. They will obtain all information, gather all witnesses, they will make a report, and then they will turn that over to the Sheriff's Office to investigate. So after that investigation, it will go back to IOLARO for their review to basically make recommendations of what any recommendations they think should be done, because they get the report and the punishment, if any, they will get all the results. They also have access to any complaints of sexual assaults, excessive force, what we've been talking about, bias policing, and search and seizure violations and dishonesty. Next page. Number 2, de-escalation. Required. So this is in our definition section. De-escalation, when reasonable, deputies should consider slowing down an incident in a manner that allows them to decrease the intensity of the situation by creating more time, distance, and space, which allows for evaluating different tactical options in a dynamic situation. So this is right now we are in the process of establishing this de-escalation guidelines and de-escalation techniques and other alternatives to the use of force policy. So we're not just going to have it in the definitions, we're going to try to apply it also to the force section. So I think that's what people are looking for. You know, that should be something that you should be looking at automatically when you go to a scene, de-escalation, and it's always part of our training. So, but we're in the process of changing that right now. Next slide. Require officers to intervene. Number 3, if excessive force is being used. This is part of our policy already, 300.21, duty to intervene. Any deputy present and observing any other deputy using force that is clearly beyond that which is objectively reasonable under the circumstances shall, when in position to do so, intercede to prevent the use of unreasonable force. A deputy who observes another employee use force that they believe is unreasonable under the circumstances shall promptly report these observations to a supervisor. Next slide. Establish and require the use of force continuum. Now again, our policy states on 300.3, necessary use of force. Deputies should only use that force that is reasonably appears necessary given the facts and the totality of the circumstances known to or perceived by the deputy at that time of the event to accomplish a legitimate law enforcement purpose. So if we continue to the next slide, this is what we kind of consider, or what we consider what the use of force continuum is. So number 1, we're right in the middle. We have to basically consider our training, our experience, our ethics, our values, and always a preservation of life. As you collect the information, you're going to assess the situation. When we get dispatched to a call, you know, being reported to dispatch may not always be the factual events that are happening at that call. So we will, as we're driving to that call, we're going to assess and we're going to say, okay, how am I going to approach this call? As we're getting more information, you know, that's the information that's known to me. As I'm going, I'm of course still considering my training, my experience, my police powers, and my policy, right? As I get to the call, I start interacting in regards to that call, I have to identify what options do I have, what's the best course to proceed. And then again, we have to just act, review, and reassess. So if there's somebody in the front that's being very vocal and verbal, can you calm him down? Or is Is he ready to fight where you just have to take action right there and then to grab him, have him step back and separate people? So those are the things that we're just constantly reevaluating before we even start thinking about force. So it all depends on the call. Not all calls are the same, and there's not one exact formula that we can use for one call. So it's just that training, that experience, the ethics of the person, and of course the preservation of life and our policy and what we can do under the law. Next slide. Require all alternatives be exhausted before shooting. For our policy 300.3.2, factors used to determine reasonableness of force. When determining whether to apply force and evaluating whether a deputy has used reasonable force, a number of factors should be taken into consideration as time and circumstances permit. So before we even consider shooting, like I said, every call is different. We want to try to de-escalate. We want to try tactical communications. The goal of law enforcement is to generate voluntary compliance. In my experience, and you can talk to any officer, 95% of our job is communication. It's really that 5% that ends up in force. Consider before using force. Look for body language, anxiety. What's that person displaying? Don't challenge a person, or like a police officer, don't challenge a person or exercise authority over a person. Don't take it personal. Stay calm. We try to control our emotions before we do any actions. And number one is try to build rapport. Find common ground and build a positive communication. That's what we always try to do on every call. Next slide. Require warning by officers before shooting. Sonoma County Policy 300.4, deadly force applications. 3.4b, where feasible, a deputy shall, prior to the use of force, make reasonable efforts to identify themselves as peace officers and to warn that deadly force may be used unless the deputy has objectively reasonable grounds to believe that the person is aware of those facts. So those are the kind of things that we're always training for. We're always trying to, like I said, not every call is the same. And, every time when we says, hey, I'm going to shoot you, sheriff's office, I'm going to put that knife down or put that weapon down. We always try to give those warnings, but sometimes, as you are aware, in 2018, when 3 of our deputies responded to one of our gas stations here in Sonoma, they were not given that opportunity to even say, I'm going to shoot you. This person just came out of nowhere and shot at them. And that person was taken without injury. So he was arrested without injury, and all 3 officers are doing fine. So, it's just, you can't put just one formula into one call. Next slide. Ban shooting at moving vehicles. Sonoma County Policy 300.4.1, shooting at or from moving vehicles. Shots fired at or from a moving vehicle are rarely effective. If possible, deputies should move out of the path of an approaching vehicle instead of discharging their firearm at the vehicle or any of its occupants. A deputy should only discharge a firearm at a moving vehicle or its occupants when the deputy reasonably believes there are no other reasonable means available to avert the threat of the vehicle to themselves or the public, or if deadly force other than the vehicle is directed at the deputy or others. Deputies should not shoot at any part of the vehicle in an attempt to disable the vehicle. So again, we're not going to step in front of a car because just because you're wearing a uniform doesn't stop the car, and it doesn't justify you shooting at a vehicle. It all depends on the call. What is, I caught off guard where all of a sudden this car's coming at me and I don't have nowhere to go to move out of the way. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider, but some of the videos and where this policy comes from, where, you know, the training that we do is people putting themselves in harm's way, and that is highly discouraged. Now we know that that does not work. So, but again, if it's to save the life of another person, we have to make a decision right there. Next slide. Ban chokeholds. This was very controversial after George Floyd, the tragic death of George Floyd. And effective June 6, 2020, the carotid control hold is not an approved use of force and shall not be applied to any person. So this is off our policy. We're not allowed to use it anymore. Next slide. So those were the 8. We're going to go ahead and step into mental health calls and training overall. So Sonoma PD mental health calls, types of service. So these are the mental health calls that Sonoma Police Department deputies get dispatched to. Normally it's a mental health evaluation. People who are feeling depressed, they're not taking their medication, or they need to speak to somebody and they just, you know, don't feel that they don't want to live anymore. So we will respond to those type of calls. Attempted suicide. So this elevates the call a little bit more. Now this person or persons have taken the next step where they try to overdose on pills, alcohol, or they're threatened to harm themselves with a weapon. And unfortunately, there are those that try to use law enforcement as a way to have law enforcement kill them, which is suicide by cop. That's how it's normally known by. Also, suicide threats to others. We respond to those type of calls, and the actual suicides where people actually have gone through the whole process and they have completed the act. So those are the type of calls we go to. Next slide. Now, mental health response procedures. When we go to these calls, we always have a 2-deputy minimum response. If we know the person, we know the history of the person, we usually know if they're cooperative or not, and the methods known to us. So we'll still take a 2-deputy response to deal with it, to deal with this person and try to give them the help that they need. If it's a known person and we don't know what to expect, you know, if they're going to be cooperative or not, or if we have to de-escalate and evaluate. Of course, entering a residence of an unknown is very hazardous and dangerous, so we always have to consider that. And then, of course, the mobile support team, mental health crisis response team, depending on the call, we always try to, if they're available, to have them respond. And they will not always go to the scene unless the scene is safe. So we recently had a call of a person who was going through a mental distress. Fortunately, he was not trying to harm anybody or himself, and but he was going through a crisis, and the family was concerned. He barricaded himself in his backyard, but was not causing any problems. So the Sergeant Tony decided to call the mental health crisis team. Took a couple hours for them, based on the information that we got, that, you know, that he wasn't trying to harm himself. He was just distressed, and he just had barricaded himself in an area of his house. We decided to wait for the mobile response team to arrive. When they finally did, they briefed the call, and they successfully were able to get this person to come out and place a 5150 hold on this person and get him the help that he needed. Now, again, when I debriefed with Sergeant Tony on this, he basically said, yeah, it worked great. They were very helpful, like they always are. And, you know, but, you know, these type of calls, they're different. Like I said, they're not always the same. And of course, we always stage medical, because we don't know if things could go bad. You know, we want to have medical there right away. Next slide. We're going to talk about training. So like I said, peace officer standards training, they have a minimum requirement. So so I put their post versus the sheriff's office. So this is what post requires. bias-based policing and cultural diversity, they require 2 hours every 5 years. Tactical communications, de-escalation, 2 hours every 2 years. At the Sheriff's Office, we do meet that criteria. We do train 2 hours every 5 years, and also for tactical, 2 hours every 2 years. But we also include crisis intervention training, which is a 32-hour course, one time only. So when we first started this training many years ago, it took about 2 years to train everybody at the Sheriff's Office. So we were holding big classes 3 to 4 times a year. And eventually we got everybody through. I think I went through it about 10 years ago, or maybe 12, 13 years ago. Now when we get new employees, when we got like 5 or 6 new employees, we'll host a class and we'll ask other agencies if they want to send new employees in through this training, and they will. So we'll fill a class of maybe 25 to 30 students, and they'll go through the 32-hour training class. Also at the Sheriff's Office, we do customer service training. It's only a one-time course. Again, 8-hour course, one time, which is de-escalation. Next slide. Again, post-requirement, minimum requirements for defensive tactics and arrest and control holds 4 hours every 2 years. So, you know, some of the smaller agencies will do 4 hours. They don't have to go through this again for another 2 years. I know some of the smaller agents probably do more than this as we. Firearms, same thing. They only require you to train 4 hours every 2 years. And of course, emergency vehicle operation course, 4 hours every 2 years. At the Sheriff's Office, we do 2 hours every quarter, which means 8 hours annually, 16 hours every 2 years. You miss more than 2 quarterly trainings, you're going to get written up. That's pretty much the rule that we have right now. So you can't miss, even though post requires 4 hours every 2 years, our training is 2 hours every quarter, and you can't miss more than 2 in a row. And there's always makeup time, so nobody ever gets written up. Firearms, 2 hours every quarter, 8 hours annually, 16 hours every 2 years. And then emergency vehicle operations is 9 hours every 2 years. So we do a little bit more than what post requires us to do. Next slide. Additional training, and this is not required by post, this is just something that we do. We do scenario-based training. So we try to duplicate actual incidents. We'll try to use our, role players, so our cadets sometimes will come in, our explorers will come in and be the role players for us. We'll use simulations, which is fake bullets. And we have training handguns, training rifles, and we'll combine defensive tactics with firearms. We escalate and we make people shoot or don't shoot scenarios. So we put people through those actual situations using role players. And we do that 4 hours. We do that training 4 hours every year. We also have the simulator, which the mayor participated in. It's 4 large screens, and it's actual just TV, and it seems real. You can ask the mayor, maybe he'll talk about it a little bit and talk about his experience. And basically we try to duplicate scenarios, real scenarios that actually happen. And we try to go to that training 2 to 3 times a year. Normally like our sergeants, we have 2 sergeants, 2 side of the weeks. So Sergeant Tony will take his deputies that are assigned to him, and he'll try to go and do about 2 hours with his deputies and train 2 to 3 times a year. And sometime with Sergeant Barros, he'll take his side of the week and they'll try to go do that 2 or 3 times a year. Other trainings that we have is first aid, CPR, and Narcan. So we do 4 hours every 2 years. All rifle carriers have to do 2 hours 4 times a year, every year. They have to qualify. So that's the training. And then of course there is a link to all our policies and training. Next slide. Now we're going to talk about use of force stats for this police department. This is the use of force stats from 2017 to 2020, and 2020 is from January 1st to July 31st. So I only did half the year for the time when I was looking for these stats. So as you can see, we're averaging there around 15, 16 a year. So we're just going to go individually. We'll take 20 we'll take 2019 since that's a complete year. So if you can look, all the use of force that we document. If we use a low lethal call of 40 millimeter, which shoots a rubber bullet into the abdomen to incapacitate someone, the carotid restraint's no longer there, but in 2017, it was used effectively. The chemical, that means it's OC spray. That's another use of force that's reported. Control hold, where again, like this person is stiffen up, does not want to be arrested, so we have to use force to handcuff them and take them to a vehicle. A firearm has been used once in 2018. I've talked about it earlier. Impact weapons, basically a baton. And that was in 2019 when that was used. Canine deployment was in 2019. Canine displayed, there was none, which normally when we do the annual report is when we go to an alarm call, that's when it's displayed, but normally people come out. Maximum restraint, that means that this person was fighting all the way through. He doesn't want to go to jail or to seek medical attention. He's detained for a reason, a valid reason, a lawful reason. So he's kicking, hitting. So we have to basically max restrain him. That means we have to tie his feet to his waist and then with handcuffs, so he won't be able to basically kick anybody. And sometimes we'll even put a spit mask on them because they try to spit. That it looks like we don't have any. I don't think the sheriff's officer is other, but we just have it there just in case something's not on this list. Pepper ball, and then personal weapons, hands and feet. So somebody takes a fighting stance and they're punching you, you're deflecting and you're punching back, and you're trying to take control by taking them to the ground. So that's how hands and feet are used when it says personal weapons. And then taser. As you can see, this year we deployed it one time. So in 2019, that's pretty much all the use of force that we've used every year. 2019, we had 16, 2018, 14, and I believe 2017, I can't see it because the screen's blocking it, but I think it was 15. And up to now, we had 8. So next slide. So this is a use of force contributing factors. So we do document alcohol, right? Let me see if I can move. Oops, sorry. I was trying to remove Rebecca's picture up on top. Somebody, so I can read the last one. But on the Zoom.
For 25%.
Yeah, if we can move it to the top, this little screen. I don't know if I can.
You have to move it on your own.
I got it. Okay, so as you can see, what are the contributing factors that we use? Alcohol, drug, combination of alcohol and drug, and then unknown. So alcohol, use of force, 56% of the time people were intoxicated that we used force on. 6.6% of the time was drug, 6% of the time was alcohol and drugs combination, and 25% it was unknown. Either we didn't smell any alcohol, but there could have been drugs, but we never got a blood test done because maybe we didn't have the legal authority to do so, or they went to the hospital to get they were taken for a 5150 evaluation. So once we take them to the hospital, we don't get a results because of HIPAA. Next slide.
So Orlando, is it fair to say, just to remind folks, so 12 out in 2019, there were 16 use of force. So 12 out of the 16, there were contributing factors, individuals that had alcohol, drugs, or some combination. Is that the way to say that?
That's the way it works. That's the way to say that. Thank you for clearing that up.
12%, because this only adds up to 87.6%, was from.
Maybe I had a calculation wrong there. Huh?
There were 16 in 2019 use of force.
So, I see what you're trying to say. It's like, how come it doesn't up to 100%? Because I think I just took the amount, like the 4. I have to remember how I did the math on that. Yeah, so by 16. Yeah. I don't have a calculator with me. I'll have to figure out how I did that. but I think it is, oops, wrong phone.
Yeah, it should be the 6% for drug, and then the 2 should be 12%. I think that's where we have an error.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right, got it. So it was my error, sorry. But it's still very low. I mean, it's still, it is, you know, like the majority is alcohol related, pretty much is what we're trying to say. So next slide. So we'll talk about citizens complaints next, and how they work. Again, if a citizen wants to make a complaint against a deputy and they don't feel, they can pick up the phone and call and make the complaint. They can send an envelope and through mail or email. They can come in person, and if they don't feel comfortable, they can go to Iolero and file a complaint. Once a complaint is filed, an investigation is started, and it depends on the complaint. So if it's a complaint that somebody was rude to a person, either Sergeant Tony or Sergeant Barras will investigate that complaint. He will, you know, again, look at body worn camera. He will look at the report, all those things, and then start his investigation that way. Talk to the person making the complaints and any other witnesses. If the complaint exceeds, you know, the rudeness to basically maybe there was a violation of the law or the officer was inappropriate, it will go to an internal affairs where they will investigate it. And at that point, I will not know what the investigation is about. All I will know is that one of my deputies is being investigated through internal affairs. At that point, once the internal affairs investigation is done, the only thing that I will see is if the deputy was exonerated. That means that it was within policy and law, or it was unfounded, the allegations were not true, or inconclusive, which the investigation, the insufficient evidence to prove or disprove the allegation, or the allegation was sustained. Of course, when the allegation is sustained, somebody will come and walk that deputy out, and either he will go through, you know, criminal procedures, or he will be terminated, or he will be written up and be given a punishment. So there's several things that could happen. And then, of course, internal affairs stays with internal affairs. All this will be provided to Iolero for them to review, and of course, make any recommendations to the sheriff's office. Next slide. So in Sonoma, this is our citizens complaints yearly. In 2017, we had 1. In 2018, we had 2. 2019, we had 4. And this year, from January to July, we've had 2. During those times, we officer contacts. That means that we physically contacted somebody or contacted somebody by phone, because we will get phone complaints also, right? Those could happen. So as you can see, in 2017, our deputies contacted 5,000 people. Pretty much it's the average till 2018, where 2019 it was 4,000, and then through July it was 1,900, almost 2,000 contacts. To get that amount of complaints, like let's take 2019 for example, we received 4 complaints. Our officers contacted 4,185 people, and we only received 4 complaints. It's 0.0009%. Hopefully that math is correct. So I mean, I don't know what to compare this. I don't think any store business could have stats this good. So, and that's just the contacts. So that's everybody that we make contacts with. Next slide. So then again, Sonoma PD mental health. So we went ahead, and what I did is we wanted to know how, you know, all the mental health calls that we had each year, of those calls, how much, or which of what those calls, which ones did we use force on? So in 2017, we'll start with 2017 to the right of the screen. We had 22 mental health calls. 2 of them resulted in the use of force. So that's 0.09%. In 2018, we had 18 mental health calls, which only one resulted in use of force. In 2019, we had 0. And in 2020, we've had so far 13 to July. We've had 13 mental health calls, which is pretty high. You probably understand why. And only one resulted in so far in the use of force. So I think that's still very good percentages, pretty good numbers. As you can see that I think de-escalation and our training is a key factor in all of these. And again, we are a small community. We know our residents. Our residents know our deputies, and some of them might be repeat calls. So I think that de-escalation techniques and training is working very well for us. Next slide. Now, use of force calls for service. So this I kind of impacted a lot of information here, so I'll try to break it down year by year. In 2017, all the calls for service include that the police department handled was 10,926. We took 1,498 reports. We made 463 arrests, and we had 15 uses of force. So as you see, it breaks down, and then what I did, the percentages there is, as I basically 0.03 is the 463 arrests are most likely where people think that's probably where you're going to use force. So I ended up saying, okay, out of the 463, we'll divide that, or 15 divided by 463, which brings you the 0.03%. You know, I think that's still very good numbers. So in 2018, you can see calls for service was 11,000. We took 1,400 reports again. We made over 400 arrests and only 14 total use of force calls. In 2019, we had less calls for service, and the number went up by 2 from the prior year. So far this year in 2020, we've taken 5,164 calls for service. We've taken 428 reports. We've made 150 arrests, and we've had 8 use of force. I think they're all under 1%. So I think those are very good numbers. Next slide. In conclusion, go ahead, next slide. I just want to say that, that I think the deputies that are working out here in the city of Sonoma, and I have to add the Valley deputies too, because they do play a big part in our community. They're motivated professionals. They're committed to our city. They want to make the city a safe place to live, work, and visit. And I'm honored to be part of the staff. We're all dedicated. We're all working every day to build and strengthen our community partnerships. And we always want to deliver, high quality, efficient, and professional law enforcement services. We've had coffee with the cop. Unfortunately, COVID has affected a lot of things. But and it's really, it may not seem like we're out there a lot, but we do see a lot of people out there now that we're able to go out somewhat and have a cup of coffee, and we still see a lot of people. They're giving us a thumbs up or just coming up and thanking us. The things that we've done throughout the years, we've given turkeys away to needy families during Thanksgiving. We have the toy drive during Christmas where we find needy families and we're giving away bikes and backpacks and a lot of things. We're doing school presentations. We're still doing the Mentoring Alliance, community speaking engagements. And this last year, we had our first Citizens Academy. It was a 9-week academy, and I think that was very successful. Unfortunately, this year, COVID didn't allow us to have it, but I think that's very informational. And I think that even brings the community together because it provides an understanding of what we do in law enforcement, that we really care about our community and that we want to, make the best of it every day. Next slide. So that's our code of ethics. And, when you read that, it really talks of, where we're coming from, that we have the respect of everybody, the constitutional rights of everybody. As we all know, since the tragic death of George Floyd, we've had 3 peaceful protests, and which we were a big part, not in participation, but it was of trust. Our young community came to us, to the police department, for guidance as they planned to have a protest as outlining police brutality. And they just wanted to go out there and make sure that they were going to be safe doing it. And they worked with our sergeants to do this peaceful protest. And why do I bring that up is because on the last protest, somebody came in and disrupted that protest and didn't agree with what they were saying. And it was, bad things about police, whatever it was. So they called us to come and move this person out of the way, or to basically deal with him. And, they didn't want to disrupt, they didn't want to, make this a non-peaceful protest. So when the deputies got there, they talked to this person. They were able to explain to him, let them have their free speech. They're doing, this because they want to bring attention to something. So the person walked away and he left. And as the deputies drove off, the people that were protesting cheered and thanked us for being there for them. And I think why I bring this up and what I tell the deputies is, look, they're just exercising their voice because other places in this country or in other areas, they're not like us. They're not as good as us. They're not, what we do every day. And they're just trying to support those other places. They cheered at us, they thanked us. Don't take it personal, and I think it's just the trust, and that's the public trust that we fight for. So, and also this community, I can't say enough of it. I definitely want to thank them on behalf of Sergeant Barras for them coming out and helping him after, he lost his house during this last fire, and a lot of community support for him. And that's, that what this community does. They're constantly showing us a thumbs up and constantly thanking us. So I can't say enough about this community. They really support our public safety as we try to support them. So next slide. So I think that is the summary. Kathy, I think you wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, so I think the goal of this presentation for the council and the community was really to provide an overview of the use of force, and some of the key things is the extensive training that is in place and the fact that the sheriff's office has training above and beyond what's required by the state. And also really to explain how, when there are issues with police conduct or questions about that there's civilian oversight and there's outside agency investigations, including this district attorney, that there is broad accountability internal, and there is progressive discipline that occurs, can up to and even including termination and civil charges when you have an officer that does not follow these regulations or policies. As you can see, I think there's like almost 700-800 pages of policies in the sheriff's policy manual, which is typical for most police agencies. And yet you can't write every rule book. So you can't prescribe every situation, and you need to hire the right type of deputies who are connected to your community, and you can build that trust and have the right values, the mindset and cultural training in order to really work well in the community. Mental health issues, I wanted to make sure that council understood how that is handled, and it'd be great in the future to have additional county resources to help with that. And, there is no perfect agency or perfect person, but I know that the Sheriff's Department under Chief Rodriguez's leadership is very open to change and open to improving and reform, and they've already been doing that. So again, I just want to say thank you to Chief Rodriguez for his work, and have watched his team work with this community again and again. And so we're happy to turn it back to council for any questions or comments or direction at this point. Thank you, Chief. And Mayor Harvey, if council wants, we can take the slides down so you can see each other better for the conversation, unless council wants to refer to anything.
If there's questions specifically on any of the slides, let's leave it up for now. I can kind of get a view of everybody. So if anybody's got questions at this moment.
Did you ask if people had questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Councilmember Agamonte.
Okay, so I did have quite a few questions, but I want to stay on point. And my big important questions from something that I really care about is I'd like to understand this difference between the C crisis intervention team and mobile support team, and who makes up these bodies? What personnel?
Good question.
So the mobile support team comes from the county, and it is a mental health crisis team. It's the same thing. It just depends on how you say it and what you mean. Normally, what we just say MST, mobile support team, mental, So it's basically a crisis intervention team, and so they come from the county. And I believe that the Board of Supervisors has, through Susan Gorin, has added more funds so they can get, I believe, 2 more. I don't know how many they approved, 2 or 4 more of these crisis intervention counselors to start responding basically more to the valley and so forth. So it looks like we might have more available to us here in the near future.
And could I ask who makes up these teams? What are they? Police officers with special training, or?
No, they're not. They're not police officers. Those come out of the county. I think they are mental health specialists. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor Hunley, looks like you've got a question.
I do. Thank you, Chief, for this very informative presentation. I'll have comments later, but so as far as our review and what we had discussed when we established the subcommittee, so what are the next steps from here?
So right now, what we're trying to do is we have several things that are going on. We Post has just mandated that we include de-escalation in our policy, specifically in the use of force. So right now, we're sending the IA lieutenant to be the representative for the sheriff's office to basically, I think it's going to be a 4-day seminar through Post, and they're going to rewrite the use of force policy. So you're going to see a lot of more changes, probably a lot more training regarding de-escalation, and then more specifically the use of force policy. So I could see for the next 6 months we're going to have a big change. And also, I believe that there was a law, not a law, but a bill that was introduced, I think last year or this year through the Senate, that requires us to do that. So not only are we just doing it, but it requires us to basically use de-escalation in our policy and have that training for our deputies or for all officers. So it's changing.
And my second question is, for everyone that's watching and, they see, how things are in Sonoma, which aren't necessarily in line with what we have been seeing on the news for many years, and they're just wondering how are we different, and what makes us different? What would you say to that? Sorry.
Well, I think a lot of it is leadership, right? A lot of it is I think leadership starts at the top. And if you have that I don't care attitude, then that's the mentality that you're going to just expose your personnel to. But if you have the attitude that I care about the community, I care what happens with people who are in need, I care to what's going on, what people are complaining about in regards to use of force, and what are we doing about it. So I think that when you get the personnel out here that we're looking for, I think ever since we took this contract, people were hand selected, and I guess I was lucky enough to be hand selected to come out to Sonoma for a reason, and this is why I'm here. And I think that's why we have an experienced group of deputies that use clear judgment when it comes to making decisions. And, you know, community-oriented policing has always been one of my biggest, you know, that I use all the time. You know, since being a deputy, going to schools, going to education of, you know, Latinos when they're taking the English classes and, you know, providing education of law enforcement, working with different groups to improve a community. I think that was one of my biggest goals as a deputy, and I've always carried that with me. And that's what my expectation is. So when you do community-oriented policing, you're interacting with people and you're getting to know them, and they get to know you, and you feel like, you know, that I think that that makes a difference in the way how you act and respond to people in general. So I think that I do try to handpick my sergeants to come out here. Sergeant Barras has been a deputy for the last 8 years. He's well known. He's got that COP mentality. He cares about the community. So you bring someone like that back. Jeff Sherman recently was promoted to detectives, and I hope he gets promoted to sergeant someday. And if we have a vacancy, we're going to bring him right back. And for somebody else, we'll bring him right back. Because we want people who live here, who understand this community, who understand the valley, who understand the connection, and understand that, you know, that it's just different here in the valley. And when you go to other parts of the county, I just feel, I don't know, it's just different. I wish I could put it in words, but I know when I go to Sonoma, it's just a different feeling. I don't worry about a lot of things, you know, a lot of things. And, you know, and it keeps reminding me of what Council Member Agramonte say, that, you know, everybody thinks we're beautiful here, but a lot of things happen. And yeah, there's a lot of things that could happen, right? And we have experienced some bad calls, right? Some bad things that do happen, but we have the deputies that are going to be able to handle that. They're going to be able to take care of this community. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely, thank you. And one more bonus question I just thought of. Just with the Springs and, you know, with our budget discussions earlier this summer, the county and the sheriff had made the decision that your position would be specifically for the city of Sonoma, no longer cover the valley too. And there was also discussions about closing the substation. So could you give an update as to what the valley situation is looking like, and how the people who end up working in the Sonoma Valley area, since we're just one big area, like how does that happen?
Well, the Board of Supervisors approved additional funds to the Sheriff's Office. With at that point, we are not going to close the Valley Sub no longer. So the deputies were saved, the positions were saved. So so the Valley's going to continue to run like it was before. With me coming full time to Sonoma Police Department, I'm working closely with Lieutenant Rosh, who was assigned the Valley substation. He's worked out here in the Valley when he was a deputy. He's familiar with the Valley, and he's familiar with the demographics. So I've introduced him to a couple of people already, and he's attended a few Zoom meetings with Susan Gorin. So he's going to be an outreach, but you know, Kathy has allowed me to continue doing outreach in the Valley if I need to do so. I do keep in contact with some people in the Valley still, but again, during this COVID, we haven't been able to do much, right? Because it's just been everybody inside. So I think I think we're going to still continue to work together. Nothing's going to change between the Valley and Sonoma. I think we're going to continue working together.
Thank you. That's all my questions for now.
Other questions?
No, just thank you so much, Chief Rodriguez. And I think your staff is wonderful. I've said this many times, and I'm just so pleased that, you know, they are here for us. Thank you.
Great. Let's go ahead and stop the screen share, and then we can open up for public comment. All right, now we can open it up for public comment and see if we have any members of the public who'd like to comment. Seeing no one rise. Seeing Fred comment in the chat, but I don't see you in the attendees list. I don't know how that's possible. So Fred, I'll definitely wait until you can join. Yeah, you're not you're not an attendee right now, Fred.
He
Or
said, raised his hand.
he said he says his raised hand is dad, which I think is meant to say dead. Um,
I don't see him at all.
yeah, it's weird. He's in a new region of Zoom which has not been discovered before. It's not a panelist or an attendee. There appears to be some sort of purgatory in Zoom. We could get he says beam him up. Yeah, log out and log back in. That would be the best idea. We learn new things every day about Zoom. And again, just appreciation for the work of Rebecca Barr to make sure that Zoom works at all. None of these meetings would happen without you and your work there. And appreciation again to Orlando, of course. All that. So we'll get Fred back.
Mayor Harvey, there is a written comment from Fred, but it was from before the meeting started, so I don't know if I can read it or not.
Yeah.
In regards to this item.
Let's see if he zooms back in, then we're going to be letting him do a double comment. I have a question that I was going to ask, actually. So I'll just do a question, and then we'll get back to Fred if he gets in, and if not, we'll just do his written comment. Is he here? Okay, great. Fred, go on ahead.
Thank you for waiting. So I enjoyed Chief Rodriguez's presentation very much, and I'm honored to be friends with Chief. And I asked him if I could call him Orlando, and he said, "Yeah, you can call anytime." That was fun. I'll make my comment about. I sent a letter to the council and the chief earlier, and I'll just let that letter kind of stand by itself. But I'm just want to make a suggestion to Chief Rodriguez and to the sheriff's department as far as vamping their use of force policy and de-escalation to consider the role of the lawful order in that, and when a lawful order becomes a legitimate law enforcement purpose, then that seems to me where things escalate, where I've seen them, you know, in a lot of the Black Lives Matter incidents. It seems like the lawful order escalation is an issue. And I'm only talking about low level incidents here. I don't want to get myself involved in trying to second guess simulator situations, because I've been in the simulator too, and I know that you know, that's an extremely difficult situation. So as far as compliance for low level incidents, I just don't think that a no left turn should ever result in serious use of force. But you know, I guess it could, but you know, that's just a suggestion that I have. And the chief mentioned exercising authority and being aware of that. And nobody likes to be told what to do. You know, people push back. So it's really a highly skilled job to come in and do this. And being a member of the police academy, I learned a lot about the job, and that was a really valuable thing to do. And I noticed that Kim's picture was on the police academy shot there. I must have missed that class that day, but it was fun to see Kim on there. And I just thought, I'll roll out my 3 minutes here. Is that in the simulator, one of the secretaries from the police department, an older woman, went in there, and she didn't take no gruff, and that other guy didn't make it. So I wouldn't mess with the secretary at the police department if I was you. As far as the alcohol, 56%, I know from my experience as a wilderness first responder that the highest percentage of rattlesnake bites is from young men who have been drinking. So that probably the highest incidence of use of force is probably young men who have been drinking. So if you can make it out of your 20s and you don't drink, you probably have a good chance of not having any troubles with law enforcement. Let's see, what else do I have on my list here? I agree with Chief, that as good as we are here, and that does come from the top. And when I was taking the police academy course, that was when something happened nationally where some of the law enforcement officers in Texas were wearing MAGA hats. And I found that to be pretty upsetting. And I went in and talked with the chief about that. And, he helped me to understand that here we enforce the law equally to everybody. And I would never imagined at that time that the country would come to a place where it is now. Like it was just MAGA hats then, but now it's like, you know, I don't know. It's way beyond that. So I'm really glad that I have a lot of confidence in Chief Rodriguez, and that I want to show him the proper respect tonight. But when I see him in person, I will call him Orlando. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Fred. Do we have anybody else rising for public comment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council for comments. Councilmember Harrington.
So it was really interesting working with Chief Rodriguez on this presentation today. In contrast, when we negotiated the sheriff's contract, which was really quite difficult and contentious, Orlando was an open book. In fact, we had to tell him that we didn't think it was his role to explain to us, like technically, how we could become police officers, because the volume of information he gave us was so detailed, because he really wanted to make sure that we had every question answered. And even in this version that was presented today was slightly pared down. I think he really wanted to not give pat answers, but instead give really substantive details about how they function. Since I've been on the council, we have had, I think, 2 incidents. One at the car wash, we all remember that. And then also the other one at the mobile home park, both involving mental health. So even though we have such a lovely community here, we do have those things, in addition to that terrible rape that took place at the Safeway. So I think it is, use of force is something that happens here, maybe less than other communities of a similar size, but it's a relevant discussion. I think it was the start of a real conversation. I think is about understanding the details of what is happening so that we can provide feedback that's meaningful. So I just want to say I really appreciate you, Chief, and Kathy Capriola worked really hard on this presentation as well. And also Logan, the mayor, for all their input. But I just think it would have been really easy to give summaries. And I think that a lot of this requires us all to take the time to have a deeper understanding of what the policies are and what they could be before we give input about what we would like them to be. So.
Thank you, Amy. Councilmember Cook.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Orlando, for the nice report. And I appreciate all that the Sheriff's Department has done. When you see these high-low signals going off with the Sheriff's Department through these wildfires, it's pretty amazing. And I know that we do have work in this country to work on this, but it's a hard job, and with COVID, it even makes it harder. So yeah, thank you for your transparency, and I appreciate you being there, and I'm glad that you're the chief of police. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cook. Vice Mayor Hunley, I saw you on mute. Go on ahead.
Thank you. Thank you again, Chief Rodriguez. I've felt lucky to have you as our chief ever since we hired you. And I think if we could just replicate you and put you in all the police departments across the country, we would move forward very quickly. And I personally have a lot of trust in our local police department. However, I also recognize that, not everyone has the experience that I have, and that I have certain privileges, based on the way that I was born. And so I try to, what I want to know more about are the experiences of people who have unfavorable experiences. And I know that, in this larger national conversation about discrimination and police, one of the things I hear a lot about is sort of one of the ways to address systemic, racism in systems is to remove discretion and have very specific guidelines as to what you can do, when you can do it, rather than just trusting that people will do the right thing because that's what they feel is appropriate. I'm really happy to hear about that. De-escalation is going to be a big part of the review of the sheriff's policies. It's an investment to sort of train people to be in what I can only imagine to be incredibly stressful situations and be so prepared that they know exactly what they need to do. But that's the direction that we need to go, to have this kind of force serving us. The other part of it is, I think the county is trying to move on the mental health piece. And there's, some other social pieces that we have a city have a separate responsibility to get to address, and with the county, and that working further on those then would help kind of focus the police back into what we want police to do. And then we have things that are meant specifically to address mental health and social issues, that it's sort of all fallen into your laps lately. So I look forward to hear the progress, and I'm really thankful for all of this information. And I think that there's always a upward path to move in all of our systems, and this is certainly one. And also, I just have to add that I feel that if our police chief was instead our county sheriff, that I think a lot of us would feel a lot more comfortable.
Councilmember Agramonte, did you have comments?
Sure. Well, I think Orlando and I have talked quite often about different things, and I really appreciate Sergeant Tony and Sergeant Baraz. And I know, especially for Sergeant Baraz, it's been a very difficult time for him. And so I'm pleased, I hope, and pray that he's moving forward and surviving this horrible thing for him and his family. But, I really appreciate your work because I'm very interested in community policing. You came to us with that philosophy, and I continue to support that. Thank
you. Yeah, I want to thank my fellow subcommittee member, Amy Harrington, Councilmember Harrington, for her work with this. It was really a fascinating process, getting to know you better, Orlando, and working closely around this, and then being able to experience all that I got to experience. And I encourage every member of the public to go through the police training that Fred was talking about, and members of council and the public to reach out if you have interest in the simulator or learning more about the de-escalation tactics that are used and taught through that, because it really was a fascinating and interactive experience where you kind of really understand that from a deeper perspective. Obviously, nationally, there are major issues around this, and I really appreciated the way that our police chief and our local deputies handled our protests here and collaborated with the kids that were the high school students that were doing it. And it was really a fantastic and collaborative effort that was really the best of Sonoma. It's great to hear the movements that the sheriff's office is already taking and being proactive, banning chokeholds early on, and continuing to move forward with de-escalation. And it's quite good to hear about the increased focus on de-escalation at the county level. I think that's extremely important, and to hear the increased funding for mental health personnel to respond there. That's where we see a lot of issues, but I also know our local sheriffs are aware of and have already interacted with a lot of our local community members who have mental health issues and know them. I've been able to experience the way that our sheriffs interact with our homeless population locally. And, there have been maybe some issues at the county level, but I think locally we've done a good job. And so just, impressed. We always need to improve. And I take the point made by Vice Mayor Hunley well as well, that, while I experience things because of my birth and the privilege that I've experienced there, others experience it differently. And that's something that, we could expand on as a council. And if there's desire on the part of the council to kind of continue to walk that road. That's definitely something that our subcommittee could talk about, or we could create a new subcommittee. And it's kind of a question that I had as well going forward. But again, just want to appreciate all the work that Orlando does around community policing, doing Coffee with a Cop, doing outreach to the kids in our community, outreach to the Latino community, outreach to impoverished individuals of our community. You guys really do have a job that encompasses everything in society. We ask police officers to do a lot, and you guys go above and beyond to do that as safely as possible here in our community. I think I can say that truly, and I've been impressed to see that, and just appreciate all that you've gone through and all that you continue to do, and that even with that you recognize there's improvements that need to be made, and you're being proactive in making those improvements. So thank you for that. I would ask council if there's a desire to kind of move forward, and if there's a direction that we'd like to move on this from kind of where we stand here.
Do we move to accept the report? Is that what you're saying?
Sure, we can accept the report, but if there's some direction to the subcommittee or desire to kind of broaden the conversation, it's something I'd be certainly open to. I know the Springs MAC has had a number of conversations around race, and those have been interesting to watch and hear. And so I don't know if that's something that we want to pursue as well.
Yeah, I've heard, I think I can't remember if it was Katati or Healdsburg, but I think several cities have had these kind of events or invitations to ask people for their stories about their experiences and I'm with the police. And I think that as a part of this sort of getting into this, like I would be interested in hearing people's experiences that they've had either here or elsewhere. I had a second idea, but I forgot. If I remember, I'll tell you.
Other members of council have comments? Desire to move in that direction?
I mean, I guess in that vein, I'd like to know from the high school students that organize the rallies, you know, I'd like to reach out to them and find out what they think would be helpful, and not necessarily ask them for their ideas, because I think they brought a lot of engagement and energy to town around these issues. And I'd like to hear from them about, what they think our role could be in terms of allowing them to be engaged. And so that's something I like to do. I know you've been in contact with them, Mayor Harvey, have you not? In general.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a good step to kind of pursue, and I know for them it was a good experience for them to be able to do that on the plaza. But I think doing it in a more formal way from the council would be good. I kind of wanted to. We've had a lot of different disasters and issues that we've been dealing with as a council and as a city and as a community. So I think bringing it back to this is a long-term project dealing with the issue of race in our community, and we need to take it in kind of a slower and more measured approach, I think is the right way to address it. So I would be, if that's the direction of the subcommittee, I would be supportive of reaching out to the kids and finding out if they have desires or wants around this kind of issue.
And then the only other idea I have, but it's not really directly related to the topic of police use of force, but on the issue of race, certainly we would have to acknowledge that Sonoma town is super primarily white, and that there are almost always structural reasons why those patterns emerge, and figure out what groups we can work with as a council and a city to understand what our city contribution to those patterns are, and how to make this a town where everyone feels welcome and like it can be their home as well. So I think that's bigger work that probably we would need some help figuring out where to start, but I'm interested in that work as well.
Yeah, I think another piece of this is to look back at the history as well of the city of Sonoma and California in general. And I think I'd had a couple just tangential conversations with the head of our historical society, and there was desire to kind of move along that path from them. But this was, a few months back before we had fires and, everything else that we've been dealing with. So I think restarting those conversations as we kind of approach into a winter time when there's less fire risk and maybe we can remove some of the disaster possibility, but having some of those conversations about the history of Sonoma and bringing some of that forward and seeing how council can be supportive of those conversations. Whether or not that's at a council meeting, I don't know. And it may not be the appropriate space for that, but figuring out how we have those conversations is something that I would be interested in, certainly.
So Mayor Harvey, maybe one idea you might want to do, if you had a subcommittee that took, kind of through the end of the year to maybe just kind of gather information and ideas. I believe with your new interim city manager and a new council, you're going to be wanting to set new council goals and initiatives. And I see that happening early in 21. And I think it makes sense to think about this effort and the scope and what you want to do on this effort with some of your other initiatives, because we really in the last few years have accomplished the things that were on your lists. And it's time to now step forward and say, there are some things we didn't, but the key initiatives, I know there's interest in recreation. I know there's interest in a whole variety of other things, park improvements. So we've got the housing element and the general plan. There's a lot of, development code. There's a lot of work that's there. And I think as a council, you're going to have to kind of have some conversations about, all right, these are the things we want to try to accomplish. And then where does this piece fit? But it may make sense to really go gather some information and look at some ideas. And a lot of cities are doing this work. So it could be kind of doing some best practice work so that something can come back to you at the beginning of 21 to really consider what next steps are.
It might be interesting in the interim to kind of look at what other cities have done and what the results of this have been. And that's kind of an advantage position that we sit in, is to be able to kind of see what the rest of the county's done on this and figure out what's going to fit best for our community. Right now, I think it'd be interesting, if we have additional comments for Orlando, and again, so much appreciation for you to come out here. I think your presentation was fantastic and really dug into the details and really showed us, what is going on in our community, how the sheriff's office deals with these kinds of issues. I think that especially the discussion about oversight was really interesting to see how use of force policies get reviewed by different police departments, if they're excessive or not excessive, but at a deadly force level, and even minor incidents of use of force also get reviewed, at least internally. But if there's additional direction to Orlando, just kind of expression, again, as a city, as a contract city, we don't have the ability to physically to write this policy. But if there's things to kind of bring to the table that Orlando could maybe communicate up the chain as far as what he heard from this council, I think that would be interesting for us to kind of ruminate on, or we could come back and talk about it at a later date.
Just to reiterate kind of what Orlando said, which is that keeping the same people here so that although they are sheriffs, it feels like we have our own local force and people that are from here or live very close here. I agree, that's really important. So to the extent the sheriff's office supports that, I think it makes it, that is, probably why we have such good relations in town. So,
Councilmember Cook, any thoughts on this one, or you good? Councilmember Monti?
No, yes, I wanted to.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, we'll receive the report, and I again appreciate your time and coming out here, and then we'll move forward on kind of a review of what other cities have done and bring this back to see what we want to do in the future on these issues. Thank you again, Orlando. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Bye, Chief.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing, that we can always discuss those issues that you're talking about. Coffee with the cop. That's where we want to hear from you. We want, what experience have you had with the police? And you guys see those advertisements. So two of the city council members, the mayor, whatever the Brown Act allows you to show up at those, and we can discuss those issues. And one thing I keep hearing over and over is that that you're privileged. Don't apologize. You guys have been doing a good job. Look what we've done with the homeless. Look what we've done with the shelters. Look what we've done with our community during COVID. I mean, the outreach that that you've done out in the valley, giving out, passing out food and taking care of, when CHP was out there threatening to close our traffic when you're giving out those grocery bags. We all work together. Just stop apologizing. You are who you are, and it's what's in your heart, not what's in your skin, right? And that's what I tell everybody. One other thing is that our police is very diverse, and if you only take the time, to go to one coffee with the cops, you're going to see what their backgrounds are. They'll talk about their background, and you'll see that they come from different backgrounds. So please come out to, when we get back to normal, whenever that is, and we have another coffee with the cop, please come and talk to the deputies and get to know them. And I invite each and every much for this opportunity. I want to thank all the council members. Thank you. Appreciate all the comments.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your time. All right, great. On to item 7.1, committee reports. Council members are appointed to a variety of boards. Do we have any regional body reports? No? Nobody? All right, great. City manager comments and announcements. We've got a couple things on here. Scheduled stuff.
We do. So, some mayor and council members have some brief slides just to go through with you on two topics to give you a presentation. Some of this is just easier to show with visuals and verbal, but these both will be brief, under 5 minutes. So first, a quick update on community emergency issues, both COVID and fire. So Wayne Wyrick is going to be joining us if he's been promoted up. And Wayne, if you're going to share your screen, or if you want me to share. So you brought up yet? Can you hear us, Wayne?
I can. Yeah, if you could show your screen, Kathy, that'd be helpful.
Yeah. So council, what we want to do is just give you some updates of some of the things at the Emergency Operations Center, and Wayne and I will tag team here a little bit. But so first, is you all know, last week we've been focused on the glass fire. Started last Sunday, 65,000 acres burned, 30% containment in Sonoma and Napa. We are now at a point where repopulation is starting to occur and coming out of it. Wayne, do you want to kind of speak to this slide at all, or?
Yeah, actually this slide I think is out of date already.
It wasn't this afternoon.
Some repopulations going on with respect to the evacuations, and so I know the county, a high priority at the county level is to try to get places repopulated as quickly as possible while keeping the safety of the community in mind. So I guess all I would say is they are continuing to work vigilantly to try to get places repopulated, and the fire area in the Sonoma County is, while still of some hazard, if we were to get some more high winds, it's not a major concern on the part of CAL FIRE.
Yeah, and this was a chart that I think was in the San Francisco Chronicle, and I just thought was helpful to share. I mean, this is where we've been in the last few years, since 2015 in fires. And as we all know, we've had more than our share. And I think it's going to be interesting after this fire to really understand what happened in areas that were burned in prior and then burned again, and what does that mean? Because that is the situation we're finding ourselves in as well. And again, this has expanded even further since this map was done. And as we know, our fire was the Nuns Fire in 2017. So this is, what we've been facing as a North Bay for the last few years. One of the things that the Sheriff's Department put into place over the last 6 months, which were rolled out, were evacuation zones. And I think that really helped move things clear. I think there's a lot more public communication that both the county will be doing and will be doing going forward. And then these are the city evacuation zones that we've also pushed out and will be continuing to work with. Wayne, anything to add there?
No, other than the fact that just recently during the fires, actually, just within the last 4 or 5 days, the county added the city of Sonoma's evacuation zones to the county master map. So we'll be on there for good moving forward.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and so just over the last week, though, you know, again, at certain points, you know, you don't know where or how fast that fire is going to move at this point. So we're all on edge and preparing. There are no more red flag warnings on the horizon, and there really is active fire containment going. Throughout the last week, Wayne and or I were duty officers, meaning we were in kind of direct contact back with the county, and obviously Orlando Chief Rodriguez and sheriff folks were doing extra duties, as well as our local fire department. Obviously, the resources, the staff working, you know, 2 or 3 days constant in a row. Just we'll have Steve come do a broader conversation at this point. I didn't want to pull them out because it's they're exhausted after this last week. We did prepare a variety of materials with the county to do a temporary evacuation center if we needed. We talked with the high school, we talked with Sonoma Raceway, with the health clinic. And so if that needed to occur with either kind of broader Glen Ellen or the Springs having to evacuate, we were ready to provide some of that support. And then also if our own community. And there was kind of potential evacuation plans. There's always contingency planning. And then I want to thank Rebecca and Sarah for a huge amount of public information that went out, again, as kind of that trusted source to the broader community and help spread the county information. So that kind of takes us through fire. Meanwhile, we still sit kind of put in the back of our brain for the last, feels like for the last few weeks, but there were some updates that we had not shared graphically with council here. And I'm going to kind of let Wayne talk through some of these items and in terms of where we are with the state and our current metrics. Go ahead, Wayne.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to sort of provide an overview with respect to the state imposed case rate and testing positivity tiers that are in place. Sonoma County is currently in the widespread tier 1 in the purple zone there. We have new cases per 100,000 population of greater than 7 currently. And as you go down in the tiers, so once you go from tier 1 to tier 2, you have less restrictive requirements in terms of reopening. Many of the businesses would be allowed to be opened indoors with a limited amount of capacity. And as you move down the tiers, they become less restrictive. In terms, next slide, Kathy. So one of the metrics that we're looking closely at, and the one that Sonoma County is not doing too well in right now, is the new cases per 100,000 population. These are our actual unadjusted case rates. And it shows, the nice thing about this graph is it shows the tier levels. So once you get below tier 1, you're into that next tier 2 levels. Once you need to get below that tier 1 line, which is at 7. And but you can see how our case rates recently have been going back up. 100,000, and that's not a good thing for our business community in terms of trying to reopen. The health officer has said that part of that is attributed to the fires and some of their testing capabilities, but in any case, it's going to be several weeks at the earliest before the county might be able to move down into the next tier. Next slide, Kathy, please. The one area that we're doing pretty well in is testing positivity. You can see that we're in not only the tier 2, but we're actually in the tier 3 level in terms of testing positivity. Currently, Sonoma County is at 4% positivity. And so that's a good thing with respect to testing positivity. Next slide, Kathy. So this shows from the state website where Sonoma County currently stands. They have what's called an adjusted case rate for the tier, which is 7.8. Our actual numbers were at 8.4, but because we have a high rate of testing, they have an adjustment factor that they use depending on how much testing that you do. The more testing you do, the better the factor, so that you get a better case rate. And so currently we're at 7.8 as an adjusted case rate, as compared to the 8.4, which were the actual unadjusted numbers. The state relooks at those numbers every Monday night and reassigns those numbers on Tuesdays. So tomorrow they'll be coming out with some new numbers, and we'll find out where we stand for the next week. In order to progress into the next tier, you need to be below the tier rate for at least 2 weeks. So that kind of summarizes the tier assignments. There was a new kind of niche that or trigger that was added to the state requirements, and it's the social equity metric and target investments that they added on October 6th. And this is an additional criteria that requires counties that, like Sonoma counties that have a population greater than 106,000, they have to meet an equity measurement or metric and demonstrate targeted investments to eliminate disparities in levels of transmission. This is fairly complex. It's not an easy thing to explain, and I'm not completely sure that I fully understand it, but it does require the county to submit a plan that defines its disproportionality on impacted populations and the percent of its COVID-19 cases in those populations, and then provide some investments in epidemiology and laboratory capacity for prevention and control of the infection. And it also requires certain positivity rates in those communities and neighborhoods that are not far above what we otherwise average in the county. So there's a couple of things that need to be had in order to meet this metric. The state is providing information to the county in terms of how to meet that metric. It's not entirely clear what that involves, but that should be it should be fleshed out in the next few weeks. And I think that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions. Thanks.
Sorry, thank you, Wayne. The only other thing I just want to say in terms of our business recovery efforts, staff continues to be working on that. We've finished kind of our parklet guide to help businesses, and that will be putting out here publicly shortly if it didn't get posted today. So continuing to work with businesses and so that they can try to stay open and as we move forward into winter. So anyway, appreciate the opportunity just to give any briefing there. If there's any questions on that, otherwise we'll move to a very brief presentation also by David Storer.
I just wanted to comment. My understanding was that the county was below at the next tier and has been consistently at the next tier, at the red tier, the one down in terms of test positivity rate, but that we continue to raise above it. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, we're here, but this is the one. Case rates is where we're not.
And at the red rate, is where schools start to reopen. And if we jump back above purple, schools don't immediately close due to that read-back. So if we get down to red, we can start talking about school reopenings. I know the county is going out to look for a variance and a school reopening plan here, but it's an issue of a lot of concern to a lot of parents here. When do schools reopen? If we get below purple and into red, schools can reopen. And then if we go back above purple, they don't reopen unless there's specific issues with that school, is the way that I understand it. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to give out
I think you're right.
any wrong information, but that's the really key piece here. Does it also allow for indoor dining if we get down to red?
If you get down to tier 2, it's 25% indoor dining.
So this is a critical piece for our restaurants, for our businesses, for our schools, is to keep with things like wearing masks, social distancing, and all the rest of it. We've got to get these rates down. We're doing a good job in terms of test positivity. We do have a high number of tests, and we're going to continue with that process, and I think it's going to ramp up. We're going to have even a higher number of tests in the next few months here, the next couple of weeks, but we need to get the cases per 100,000 down for 2 straight weeks, and then we can move into the red tier, and it's a lot of benefit to our community and our businesses to do so. So just encourage people to social distance. It's been a long time. It's been a lot of this. We're all tired, and we're tired for a variety of reasons because we've been getting beat up in Sonoma County for sure, but we got to keep at it.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. Nice summary. I'm going to stop screen sharing and we'll go just to a brief update. Thank you, Wayne, very much. And we'll go to let David Storr give you a brief update on housing element and our regional housing needs assessment number. And there are those cute grandkids again.
Kathy, you're muted.
Sorry. David, I think you're muted too. It was a double mute party.
Okay, David is here.
Great. So you started at the beginning. We didn't hear anything, David.
Well, I finished. All right. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about regional housing needs discrimination and a regional housing needs allocation. But before I do that, the major steps in updating a housing element are pretty much these. Number one, what I just talked about, getting a regional housing needs determination from the state HCD, Housing and Community Development Department. It gets transmitted to ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, which is our local council of governments, which has jurisdiction over 101 cities, 9 counties. They get to distribute that determination into parsing out to all of those jurisdictions an allocation. Then the cities and counties update their housing elements based on RHNA, and we have to basically include lands within our city limits that are zoned to accommodate those numbers of units that we've been allocated. Once that's been done, we prepare the housing element, and then we submit it to HCD for certification. And as a result of that certification, we can then qualify to seek state funding for housing programs and the like. I'm not going to go into these 5 basic statutory requirements, but as a result of these statutory requirements, the RHNA numbers have to be given out to jurisdictions consistent with these particular 5 requirements. The big picture here is that ABAG received a regional housing needs determination from the state that was basically 135% above the prior or the current, if you will, regional housing needs determination number for the Bay Area. It's now 441,176, which is now going to be distributed over the next cycle, which is called the 6th cycle. And when it boils down to the impact on Sonoma, that 441,000, I'll explain it on the slide in just a moment. If the number we land on is 330 units, then that's going to be an increase of about 141%, which is somewhat in line with the overall ABAG increase. So when you look at the comparison between the ABAG regional housing needs determination of 441 on the top line there, you can see that the VLI number is 26%, the LI is 15%, moderate is 17%, and above moderate is 43%. And again, if you look at the number, if it lands upon the 330 units, and I'll explain how that number was arrived at, you can see that there's a pretty much similarity between what the city of Sonoma has to produce in its RENA, in its housing element, with respect to the general ABAG distribution that every other city is going to be more in line with. Comparing that to our current, or the fifth cycle that we have right now, for those 137 units, you can see that there's a shift to the very low income from our number of 18% up to somewhere between 26, 27%. And looking at the numbers again very quickly, you can see that there's a shift from the above moderate category to that very low income. The LI and the moderate, plus or minus, are about the same. And that was just there for your review. So what ABAG did about a year ago was create a committee called the Housing Methodology Committee that basically tried to figure out how to divide what number it was yet to receive among the jurisdictions and come up with a basis consistent with those 5 statutory requirements. So from the Housing Methodology Committee, it would then proceed as a recommendation, once they've arrived at something, to go to the Regional Planning Committee, who then provides a full recommendation to the ABAG board. These 2 steps have actually happened. But just a little bit about the Housing Methodology Committee and how we can, how we did tie into that as a city and how we tie into the Regional Planning Committee as well. I'll explain here, but again, over the last year, we met 13 times. The shortest meeting was 2.5 hours, the longest was 4.5 hours. And we did look at many options of how to meet those statutory requirements. Because at the end of the day, we all have to go to HCD and say, we believe that what we've done in our housing element meets those statutory requirements. And so it's not a matter of how high or high low the number is, it's a matter of whether it's been determined accurately and then distributed accurately amongst those income levels. So at the end of the day, last week or so ago, a little bit over, the housing methodology on a vote of 24-7 of those members voted for an option called 8A, which had an acceptable, at least in my opinion, provision of jobs, housing, and also transportation linkages, which they didn't have in those first and a couple of the other options prior to this option number 8 that was provided by ABAG staff, which was the subject of a letter that I wrote to on behalf of the city to ABAG and other elected officials and city officials in the county also did something similar. So the Housing Methodology Committee was made up of 9 elected officials, one from each Bay Area county. Susan Adams from Roanoke Park was excellent, representing the county on those very issues that I've just spoken about. We also have professional staff. We had Jane Riley from the county and Noah Howard from the city of Cotati as the alternate. And there were other regional stakeholders on that Housing Methodology Committee. When it comes to the process, as I said, that action on the 18th by the HMC then went to the RPC this past Thursday after we published the staff report for your city council. The agencies were supportive of that in Sonoma County to an agency, even though the county representative realized that it was not necessarily the most beneficial option for her county, but it benefited the broader context of the county. Now that action was debated ad nauseum by those in a minority, those in the 7 and those of the 4 in the Housing Methodology Committee to say, wait a minute, we haven't quite finished where we want to finish up as a minority. We think that the full executive board should actually have some other options to consider. On October the 15th, the full ABAG Executive Committee will actually review the recommendation of the HMC, which went to the RPC. and we have Council Member Jake McKenzie on the executive board, along with David Rabbit. The milestone that I just want to provide here for a minute is such that the draft RENA methodology will actually go to HCD to see if we do meet the statutory requirements for the distribution in the winter, beginning of next year. And that will be a formal process that they release those numbers. They'll be taking them from this meeting on October the 15th until the winter to fine tune everything. There's still some loose ends perhaps, but when that final draft methodology gets sent out there, there will be an opportunity for jurisdictions to appeal, and jurisdictions do appeal, and that will be directly to HCD. Then at a point towards the end of 2021, those RENA allocations will be locked in, no more appeals, it's a done deal, and then jurisdictions will basically have the year 2022 to actually write their housing elements and then submit it to HCD for certification by January 2023. Now, these meetings that I've mentioned by the HMC and the RPC at ABAG, again, sorry for the acronym, have all been public meetings where people can attend and participate, and they have done sometimes loudly. The point being is we have the ability to talk to the president of the ABAG board, Jesse Arglin. He's the mayor of Berkeley, ran an excellent couple of meetings towards the end there, and also Fred Castro, the secretary at ABAG. And we can also send comments to Mr. Rabbit and Mr. McKenzie. This concludes staff's presentation at this point. I'm happy to try to answer any questions. And I think I have to unshare, I think, unless there's an interest in the numbers.
Questions for David Stewart? Great. I'm not seeing any questions, so just want to appreciate your presentation. It's definitely a thing we need to all be aware of, and it's some big changes coming down from the state, and changes that are going to push California to increase its housing stock, something we needed to do for a long time, but maybe a bit of a struggle for smaller communities for sure. But still, movement on this issue is positive, I think, for some people's perspective. Others, it's an interesting debate, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear the numbers. All right, great. We're done. All right, good. So we're done with number 8, City Attorney Jeff Walter.
Yes, Mayor. If the council has 5 or 10 minutes left of energy for the evening, I have a short report on some new developments in the council's use of social media platforms and emails that are found to be consistent with the Brown Act, and those practices that are not. The Brown Act has for many years provided that a majority of the council shall not, and I'm now reading, outside a meeting authorized by the Brown Act, use a series of communications of any kind, directly or through intermediaries, to discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item of city business. However, legislation that was just approved by the governor that will become effective on January 1 states the following. This general prohibition does not prevent a council member from engaging in separate conversations or communications on an internet-based social media platform to answer questions, provide information to the public, or to solicit information from the public regarding city business. So this says that you can use your Facebook account, go to your Facebook page, and ask the public whether or not they approve of an upcoming land use development project and solicit input from the public to do so. We'll talk about the implications for bias and due process violations for posting such a request or answering questions to the public that may be inquiring of your intended vote in a particular matter in a little bit. But this particular legislation says you can use your Facebook page, your Twitter account, to answer questions that are posed by the public, to solicit information from the public, and to provide information. However, goes on to say that the council, a majority of the council, cannot use the internet-based social media platform to discuss among themselves business of a specific nature pertaining to the city. This means that the council, a majority, cannot make, post, or share on an internet-based social media platform between the members of the council, including comments or use of digital icons, i.e. emojis, that express reactions to communications made by other members of the council. So if council member Bill posts a comment on his Facebook page and other members of the council who have access to that page see the little thumb up or thumb down, like or dislike, or a comment, or could share that particular posting, this law would prohibit the use of a thumb to say we like that comment from council member, or we make a comment about that particular posting. I think a council member probably could share that particular posting, but not with another council member. So again, council member Bill posts some comment on his Facebook page, Councilwoman Sally cannot go onto that page, even if she has access to the page, and do a little thumbs up like. And Councilmember Sally could also not comment on Councilmember Bill's information or posting, but Councilmember Sally probably could share that posting with some other person other than another council member. Obviously, that means that council members can post things on their Facebook account or other internet-based media platform, and every other council member can read what has been posted. This implicates some potentially serious issues involving, for example, upcoming land use applications involving use permits or design review or tentative maps, where you're all explaining how you're going to vote on that particular proposal even before it's become before you. That shows potential bias. It also shows that you're not willing to wait for all the evidence to come forward at the hearing before you come to a decision that may deny the applicants a fair hearing. So my recommendation is you continue as I think you have in the past and not express on social media platforms definitive opinions about city business. I think you certainly can, in response to the public's query that may be posted or solicited from you through a social media based platform, maybe concerns about issues, but always make sure, in my opinion, that you're clear that your final decision awaits the full hearing and the receipt of all the evidence before you make a final decision. Another development that has occurred is the Attorney General has issued an opinion dated September 22, a couple weeks ago, where the Attorney General provides that if a member of the public sends an email to all council members and the public, and one council member thereafter responds to this email with an email to the sender and members of the public only, is this acceptable under the Brown Act? Meaning the responding council member responds back to the sender and the public, but not to the rest of the council. The Attorney General has ruled that that is not a violation of the Brown Act. It raises a sort of interesting question. Does that mean that all 5 of you could send to that requester an email and that would be acceptable? Probably, because there's no way, if you're all following the AG's opinion, you would know that any other council member has responded. And the law can't be that the first in time is the only council member who's entitled to respond. Whoever rushes to that reply button first wins.
Do you have to delete the other members of council from your reply all, or can you reply all with them on it?
You cannot reply all.
Okay.
You have to reply back to the sender only and other members of the public. So it requires you to go through and piecemeal which of the email addresses that are up there in the reply box that are appropriate and which ones are not. And
Okay.
fellow council members' emails are not appropriate.
Great.
And then finally, the Attorney General has sanctified a practice that some of our city clients follow, and that is this. As part of the boilerplate on an agenda, there's a statement that says any item that's listed on this agenda can be acted upon, even those items that are only described as for discussion purposes only. The Attorney General has held that that general statement allows you to take action on every item on the agenda, providing that that admonition is conspicuous and prominently placed on the agenda. The Attorney General suggests in large, bold font, larger font type size, etc., so that the public knows that even though an item is described as discussion purposes only, the overall statement that allows action to be taken could in fact be invoked to take action on that item also. That's it for me.
Would that include like a motion to agendize an item? Like is
Motion to agendize an item. That's governed under a separate portion of the Brown Act. That cannot occur. You cannot move to add an item to an agenda unless there's certain circumstances that are present. Okay. And you can do that whatever your agenda says.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right.
Sorry, I was just saying, staff with the city attorney is working, Rebecca's working with Jeff on a social media policy to bring back to you too. So there'll be a follow-up item here.
Looking forward to seeing it. Great.
Do you have, sorry, one quick question for Jeff, just as to whether, and maybe this is more just future question, whether for the social media stuff, there's a difference between someone's page that's private because you have to click accept to be their friend versus public pages. Because I think the definition of internet, blah, 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 whatever, says something to do with things that you can see without any action taken. So with the policy, I think if there's a difference between what we can do with our personal pages versus what we can do on a public page, I think that would be nice to know.
Yeah, the law defines internet-based social media platform means an online service that is open and accessible to the public. So it's not open and accessible to the public. Apparently, these rules don't apply.
Well, doesn't that mean if the platform is open and accessible, like Facebook is open and accessible, or is it about the account?
I'm not sure I understand the difference.
It's not like a paid subscription service that you have to apply to. The platform of Facebook is open to the public.
Yes.
But your individual account may not be.
I understand that. I think though, even if it's a private account and restricted, I don't see how the council members could use that as a method to communicate amongst the majority. That too, in my view, would be a violation of the Brown Act.
Great. Thank you, Jeff, for that update. And I look forward to the policy being brought forward. I think it's an important and interesting time. It's always interesting to see how law evolves with technology. Moving on to item 10.1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, pursuant to government code, lots of numbers, case Friends Public Corridor, the city of Sonoma. We're going to be retiring to closed session. Jeff.
And I'm recused from this because it's next door to my office. So good night.
Good night.
And council, please use the link that I sent you for the closed session.
Before we go,
Public comment.
Yeah, we need public comment before we do that.
Open up for public comment. Seeing no one rise. Having no emails.
No.
I'll go ahead and close public comment, and we will retire to closed session. Thank you.
Thank you.